This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, it's time to head out on the roads that are damp and wet, and you can see there's some cloud cover that's come in as well. Hopefully those roads will lead us to something exciting. Well, I suppose they have already led us to something exciting, but I won't ruin the surprise just yet, because I'm sure Steve will like to show you what we found already this morning. It didn't take us very long at all, but we managed to get what we needed. And I'm going to be seeing if I can find any signs of, well, anything really. I'm just going to be bumbling about in these wet conditions. It's quite difficult sometimes to find what you're looking for. But like I say, we're just going to follow the roads. Hopefully, because of how wet it is, most of the animals will come down towards the roads on this your very own live African safari. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Djuma and the northeastern corner of South Africa. As you can see, our beautiful, clear conditions from yesterday have now given way again to clouds, and there was a bit of rain at some point last night again. But hopefully it's going to clear up. It doesn't look as though it's too thick, so we should be fairly good. My name is Tristan. On camera, I've got Theo this afternoon. This morning, should I say. Sorry, it's not the afternoon. And it's lovely to have you all on board. We are going to be, like I say, bumbling along, trying to figure out where we can go, where we can't go. We're still exploring which roads are actually even open and which aren't. We have to just try them, and then if they look wet, we kind of stop. So we'll see what we can do. Hopefully we can find some sign of something. We'll hopefully also see, Swalu and Prideland, Ngala. To be also basically bumbling around so that you guys can ask us questions and have comments. Remember, you can use hashtag WildEarthFC on the YouTube chat stream and all the comment sections on the various places that we're broadcasting to. And it's always nice when you guys get involved. It really does make for much better conversations. Sometimes when you guys ask certain questions, it leads us into deeper and more meaningful conversations, which always is the aim of this in many ways. So hopefully we will hear from you today. Right, now I'm heading west slowly just because, well, why not? Like I say, I don't really have a massive plan in terms of finding our spotted cats. It's just going to be potluck, there's no real tracking that we can do. I mean, we can find tracks on a road and follow those tracks and hope for the just drive all the west and see if maybe Shadulu or the Hook or Tingi is hanging around this side, and if nothing here, then we'll slowly head eastwards and see what we can pick up. In the meantime, though, I'm going to send you across to Steve. Like I say, he has a nice surprise. It didn't take us long this morning to find what he was looking for.
Good morning, and welcome to the dawn. Welcome again to the Talamati Pride, who have not gotten very far from last night. Maybe 100 yards from where we left them, and they're being very vocal. They're making lots of little contact calls. We came out of camp and we found them just right here. So they're about 30, 40 yards from our gate, and they haven't done much since last night. It does look like they've eaten something again, that their bellies are very full. But first of all, my name is Steve, joined by Paul on camera, and as always, we are very what these get up to. They're being very, very active. Well, they're very alert. There's been a few of them have gone off to the left and then come back, and they've been stalking each other. They even tried to stalk us for a moment. But they're all here, but they're contact calling. So I don't know who they're looking for. If they're all 14 are here. Are they looking for Darkmane? Has Darkmane been calling? Are they going, Daddy? Where are you, Daddy? counted 14 earlier. There's 2 off to our left. They're hidden now. Maybe one missing. I can hear some hyenas calling in the distance. That's what got them up. Far away though. Luke, great way to start the morning. Are you ready? Here it comes. See this lying, the one with the blind eye. You see how she's lying on her back? She's still calling, with an attempt at a call anyway. The whole pride didn't engage though, but most of them did. They can't help themselves when they start hearing the call. They all start going, but strangely enough, the 2 off to our left didn't, and this one here, bottom left, didn't react in any way. The roar of the lion, everybody. You are on Djuma. And Djuma is the local word for the roar of the lion. Djuma. If you've never heard that before, that is where the name comes from. D-J-U-M-A. Djuma. Djuma. Okay, so you might see the interest of this one here. And this has happened 3 times already, where the sister moves, and then they can't help but try and catch her. Jane, magnificent sounds, aren't they? They keep trying to catch each other, but their bellies are relatively full, so it's very odd to know what it exactly is. It's just lots of games. Look at the stalking process happening. She's flat. Can't see her. We've been joined by another vehicle. That's what you can probably hear. Rivki, I'm not certain how old the oldest girl is in the pride, but she's, I think she's the one with the one blind eye, and she's a good age. She's probably at least 13, 12, 14. I don't actually know. Oh, that's a good tackle. There's a lot of power there. See the tackling of the legs, trying to trip each other up. Now this individual is going to go up to the oldest lioness, who's lying there just in front of her. She's going to rub her in a certain way or fall on top of her. Okay, she's not. She's going to fall right there. Ah. What a hard life it is being a lion, isn't it? Hey, this is day 4 or 5 of them being in this area. They haven't done very much. But then in saying that, they might have gone far and just ended up back here again. It's very hard to say. We haven't gotten very far ourselves. Zach, lions have got the contact call, which is that little that we've been hearing, and then the roar, which we also heard. Now I can only count 11 here. How did that happen? So there must be a few missing. Sometimes they all disappear in amongst each other. So there's obviously the contact call that they often use to get the pride together. It's a very similar call that Mum uses when she's looking for her cubs. It's a very soft call, but it carries some distance to it. It doesn't carry the same distance as the roar. But then the roar that you heard there is primarily a territorial call. So prides of lion are territorial, and they defend an area against other prides. And by calling, they're able to sort of time share or space themselves out. And you'll often find with the pride of lion that have got youngsters, if they hear male lions calling and they've got youngsters that aren't belonging to those individuals, then they will often get up and move and take their cubs away. Obviously, there's lots of vocalizations that they make at feeding time. None of those are designed as calls, though. Those are aggressive postures, aggressive sounds that are made due to the fighting. Okay, so there's 2 more over there, just outside our camp. So that's definitely 13. They're just playing over there in the long grass. You can get them a ball. Not the best view. They're right outside our camp, though. And just get the tail of them. And gone. This area has been like a war zone for the prey animals for the last 5 days. Can you imagine? Candy, they are almost exclusively carnivores. You will sometimes, well, they do eat bone, of course, and hide. They will eat grass from time to time, not as a means of nutrition, but as a means of causing them to regurgitate. You will have them eating animal rumen as well, as a form of gaining macro and micronutrients, as well as gut enzymes. So often find them licking at the rumen content that they might have dislodged from an animal that they've killed, or as well licking at buffalo dung. You see leopards do it quite regularly. They first lick it and eat it. There's lots of gut enzymes and bacteria that the body needs and help with digestion. And obviously they're also rolled in all sorts of dungs to try and eliminate certain smells that they might have. So a lovely little family portrait, isn't it? They could all just put their faces up and look towards us. That would be splendid. So we've had some pretty easy tracking the last couple of days, which is pretty cool. But again, from these wonderful Ngalas here on Djuma, going to be sitting over to Anbion Ngala with Tess, who'd like to say good morning.
So I am sitting here at Anbion Ngala. It is a very beautiful morning here. Good morning to everybody. And I'm sitting with a common duiker that's actually in the long grass at the moment, and it's quite wet. We had a lot of dew overnight. There's a lot of clouds coming in this morning. It's really quite cool. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide this morning for safari here at Anbion Ngala. Behind the camera we have Sebastian. And we are really enjoying this cool weather. We look like we're having a bit of a cloud cover coming in again. As you can see, the sky behind me is very, very grey. And we've got a bit of a light mist and drizzle coming in at the moment. So we're not sure how long we're going to be able to stay dry for this morning. But we're certainly going to try. We're going to go have a look where the Birmingham lioness may be with her little cubs, and the Timbavati River is still flowing. But you can see it's quite a beautiful morning. We do know that there are some elephants somewhere in here to the right of us as well, but it's so thick at the moment that we actually can't even see them. All we can do is hear every now and then I can hear an ear flapping or a branch breaking. But you can see it is incredibly thick in there. But you can hear, have a listen to all of the birds that are still having their dawn chorus in this cool weather. And a little Swainson spurfowl in the road. You can see that beautiful red mask on the face, very distinct. So this morning it seems like there's a lot of birds that are active, not only just in the road like the Swainson spurfowl, but we're hearing a lot of birds and we're seeing a lot of them fly over. And I think it's because there's been such a boom overnight of insects and flowers. And so the birds are just incredibly active at the moment. But it's quite a beautiful morning. And it's really, really good for us because this cool weather means we might actually have a good chance of finding some predators today. It is quite a challenge because we've had so much rain that we cannot go off the roads at all at the moment, and we're restricted because we can't cross the river everywhere. And some roads we just don't want to risk with black cotton soil. We really don't want to be going down there. But I think what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to keep driving along this road. There's a beautiful clearing coming up, and I'm really hoping we find some animals there, especially I'm hoping for the Birmingham Pride, actually, because they have been in this area for quite a few days with the Ross males, the lioness with the 2 8-month-old youngsters, and some of the other lionesses and sub-adults. Come on, spurfowl. Here we go. Okay, so let me go have a look if there's anything in the clearings coming up ahead, but I'm super excited to see what we see this morning in this beautiful weather.
Could have been just a duiker or something like that. So, hello hornbill, hello impalas. But unfortunately, it's shot off, like I say. So even if it was something worth trying to find, there's not really much I can do about it, because if it is anything of cat proportions, it certainly does not want to be seen, which means we've got no price on it in this long grass. And if it's not on the road, like I say, we're not going to see it. So no point in hanging around too much in that area. It smells a lot like leopard urine, but I mean, obviously genets also produce that same signature smell. So it could have just been from a genet last night. The roads are so washed, there's no ways to see tracks on that particular section. But personally, think it was a duiker. That's my strong kind of feeling. Just the way it kind of bolted off the road and into the bush makes me think it was one of those. The reserve is still very wet. The seep lines are still pushing water. Some of these roads, it's just not drivable anymore. And I know that a lot of you will be asking about the Hyena Den, but I'm pretty sure that road is going to still be closed. I'll go check it out at some point, but I don't think we're going to be able to access it just yet. It goes through a seep. So probably find that we're going to have to leave the Hyena Den for a couple of days still. Unfortunately, we'll see. We'll go past and have a little look and figure it out at some point. Maybe this morning we'll head that way. Once we've checked this western boundary. Anyway, carry on and try and see how the western boundary looks, see if we can't pick up any sign of something on this side of the reserve.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, they called again. They're very alert to any movement, any sounds. We haven't heard any reply from Marol. But these two youngsters aren't yet very involved in the calling. The one went and stood next to Mum while she was calling and made some noises, but by no means was fully involved in the roaring. Might happen again. Here we go. Two youngsters here, they're just doing that. They're haven't quite engaged those muscles properly yet. So special, isn't it? Okay, now watch the interest on this lioness's face. The two others are on their way back again. They keep stalking each other this morning. It's been quite something to witness. Keep stalking each other. Okay, so all 14 are definitely on site. Because there's 3 behind us now, and there's 11 in front of us. So here comes one of the adults at the back. She's going to show them where to go. Well, the 3 behind us are walking up the access and away from camp, and that is where the rest of the pride is going to start going. That's what they do. One starts moving, they all start following. Darcy, and they are a gorgeous pride. They are a really gorgeous pride. They're looking very strong and fit. And we're just going to walk right past us. Isn't that so special? This is one of the most precious sort of things, I think, of being out here. It's being this close to a really large, powerful pride, and they just walk past you. They're not concerned. Hello, ladies. they've decided it's time to go back to the north. Van Danks, you want to know if they've seen something? I'm not sure. They've been very alert. The two individuals that started walking along the road have headed up, and the rest, they just can't help themselves. Don't know what they've seen. Maybe they heard something. Maybe there was maybe the calling that we heard was them in response to another pride calling. And as I said, time sharing. This is not necessarily their territory. So this is definitely the realm of the Nkuhumas and them being here. They might have heard the Nkuhumas and said, okay, we'll move back out again, which is what they will do. So we're gonna carry on. Oopsie, not that way. It's a bit of a roadblock. I'll just wait for this boy. Going to be no off-road driving again, everybody. It's still too wet. Always last to move. Well, now they're going to walk along the road back to the direction we've spent a bit of time with them in the last few days. Maybe back up north. Okay, very good. Well, we're going to follow the lines, see where they head to, and while we do that, we send you over to the south and the east and beyond Phinda.
Wow, what a fantastic start to our morning with Steve and his lions. But welcome to Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve, and look at this beautiful view we found. There's just animals all over this huge floodplain, and what I am most excited about to see is that the river that actually created this floodplain is full, completely full, for the first time this year, and only the second time I've ever seen it full since I've been working with Phinda. So the animals, as you can see, are just flocking towards the river to drink early on in the morning. There's zebra, there's wildebeest, there's a couple of impala as well. It's amazingly exciting to see. There's also some beautiful little water birds, woolly neck stork, which have obviously been drawn here by the water. So it's just creating habitat for so many more animals, opportunity for so many more animals to do well here. It's amazing. So we've come out here to see if we can find 5 sub-adult cheetah that have been seen around and about here for the last few days. We haven't found any sign of them yet, but we are going to continue looking for them as the morning goes on. My name's Ross, and behind the camera today is Glenn, and we are, as I said to you, coming live from Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve today. And it does seem like it's going to be quite a hot day, so I think these few hours early in the morning are going to be our best chance to find these cheetah before they find a bush or a tree to lie under. This is the time when cheetah will be moving around. They are diurnal animals, so they would have been resting during the night, and this period between sunrise and maybe 2 hours after sunrise is the time that they use to move around, maybe hunt, maybe scent mark, maybe find other cheetah to mate with. Maybe not so much these 5 sub-adult cheetahs. They'd probably be just concerned with avoiding predators at the moment and finding food for themselves. And this is actually a fantastic area for them to be hanging around, because in the southern part of Phinda where we are now, or the southeastern part, it's very, very thick, dense vegetation. So for cheetah to be able to survive, they need to be aware of their surroundings all the time. And to do that, they usually prefer open areas like this floodplain. So this is kind of a little oasis of open plain in the middle of thicket, which is exactly why I think they've chosen to sort of stick around here. They may move into the thickets just to maybe find food or to hunt in the thickets, but they'll, I'm sure, come back out to the floodplain where they'll feel safe, where they can spot predators coming from much further away and have time to escape them. But there's lots of nyala, a lot of duikers in these thickets, which is good food for them. So what we're going to do is drive down, hug the river, and explore the rest of this floodplain, see what else we can find, and hopefully we can find some sign of these cheetah. So our beard has asked what the name of this river is, and it's called the Munyawana River. It's a Zulu word, it means brackish water. And this river, I'm not sure who named it, but it's in the maps that I've looked at of this area from the 1930s and 40s, it was already called the Munyawana. So I think it's been a name that was given to this river long ago, because just this floodplain is the junction where this river flows into False Bay, which is part of a massive estuary called the St. Lucia, or Lake St. Lucia, False Bay, Lake St. Lucia. So there is quite a lot of salt water, or at times there is salt water in this river, because it's connected to the estuary, which is connected to the sea. And even though it's actually not flowing at the moment, this is just big pools that have collected in the river. Since the rain stopped, it stopped flowing, because it's actually got quite a small catchment area. But it's still beautiful to see there's so much water. So we're going to go explore this floodplain. We're going to drop down onto the grassland, and we're going to send you back to Steve with his lions and see what's happening that side.
Thank you, Ross. Well, the lions are all moving. They're on the road, up and down, running forward, tackling each other. It's quite an entertaining morning, in fact. It's just this one young male lurking at the back, being a little bit lazy. The rest of the pride is scattered up front there, and every now and again you see them lurching out the bushes from either side of the road to catch each other. Very important. Got your tail. Very important techniques. You see the tackling of the back foot. Very important to trip up a prey animal. And also that sort of play fighting there is also quite important when it comes to lion-on-lion combat. In all lessons of play, there's lots and lots of life lessons gained. That was a great tackle. Did you see that? You knock the back hips out. Very important. Knocking zebra wildebeest down. Okay, let's move up a bit. Where you going, girl? You want to come play in the sand, do you? We're very blessed to spend time with lions when they're busy like this. That's one of the reasons why we love to try track them and find them early in the morning, because you have the opportunity to have them playing and being full of beans like this, which is always very special. Great, we'll carry on. So you can see why we track in the road. So they like to move in the road. Obviously they don't always stay in the road, but they will move. Most of their journey will be along a well-used road like this because of the grass. Oh, Chris, we get used to the numbers when it comes to the prides, and sometimes it's tricky, but generally prides occur in certain areas, and we're normally quite familiar with those areas, but individuals, when you know the pride quite well, you look at the number, you look at the number of cubs, you look at any males that might be with them, any characteristic sort of features. The play is turning a little bit more serious between these two. But it's not easy. I'll be honest, if you've never seen a pride before, you wouldn't know who they are. Just watch. The lion's going to explode on the right in a moment. One's been waiting. In a few seconds, you're going to see it burst out of the bushes. Oh, maybe not. There we go. Got you. Now, lionesses will never give up this play. Lionesses from cubs through to adults will continue to play like this. Males will play like this now while they're still in the pride as youngsters, but as soon as they become dominant males, they become too cool for that, everybody. There's no playing with the males. Life's too serious for them. Let's go again and ball. Life's way too serious for adult male lions. I think I've answered that question 4 times in the last 3 days about male lions in their manes. It is, first of all, is for protection against the male. Around the neck area, adds a cushioning sort of blow around the throat. And second of all, it shows size, strength, maturity, dominance. A big male lion will have a big, thick mane, and he will look even bigger than he normally would. And so it helps to avoid conflict with other males. Not always, But a big, thick, well-set mane will often drive younger males away without any conflicts at all. Okay, there's a nice little junction in the road. We always check this junction. This is one of my favorite junctions to check. This tree on the left is the one that all of our leopards come and scent mark on. Charlotte, you will hear it. You will hear it. It's the same as with us, you know, with humans. There's play and then there's not play. you will hear the difference. There was a couple moments there where lionesses reacted with a bit of an aggressive growl. Their posture changes as well. I saw it in the distance with one of the young lionesses who was playing with the male. The male probably got a little bit too rough, and she actually dropped her bum to the floor and her head and shoulders in that sort of defensive posture. When she's had too much, they will get aggressive. They'll actually make growling noises. Whereas when they're playing, there's generally not any growling that happens. It's mainly just chasing and knocking each other over. You're being very noisy this morning, aren't you? That, for example, is play. Let's see if it changes. So 50, they are having a huge ball this morning. I love it. Love it when lions play like this. They can be very entertaining to watch. What have you got there? They're very curious. I really have no idea, Peter. Rotation or flexibility. I mean, it's pretty decent. Leopards can go up a tree and turn their wrist completely and then come back down again. Lions don't have as much flexibility. I think there's more strength for heaviness, or because the body of a lion is very, very, very heavy in comparison to leopard. So there's only so much rotation that could be sort of justified without it snapping. But bearing in mind, you can see the back of that front feet there. There's actually the whole hand that's elevated off the floor. They're walking on the tips of their fingers. So it's not actually the wrists that you're seeing doing a lot of the work. It's the carpals inside the hand, or metacarpals inside the fingers, that are doing a lot of the activity. And then the wrist comes all the way up onto that joint that's elevated off the ground. That is actually the wrist. The dew claw, which is high up on the side of the foot there, is actually the thumb. Okay, as they continue on, shall we? Okay, well, we continue on with the lions. They're having so much fun. I can't help but do so. And in the meantime, we'll see where they're headed to from here.
Good morning and welcome to Eco Training Pridelands. My name is JP LaRue and behind the camera we've got Parrot. At the moment we're watching two white-faced whistling ducks. So these little ducks that we're seeing over here, they've got typical white faces and overall dark bodies, hence the name white face. Unlike typical ducks which quack, they also whistle, therefore referred to as a whistling duck. At the moment, they're just busy preening. I'm just going to zoom back with the camera. Preening is simply a task of realigning individual flight feathers, as well as taking preening gland oil from the base of a preen gland and rubbing that over your feathers to make your feathers more supple, as well as watertight. Especially with ducks, that's quite important because they would like to be as buoyant as possible. One of the things that we also quite often notice with white-faced whistling ducks is that they will also groom one another. This is referred to as allo grooming, and the function of that is just to reduce social tension as well as to create friendly bonds between individuals. These ducks normally form monogamous pairs, which means that they will form a pair for a prolonged period of time. It varies between different species and how long they will actually stay together. Some species will form monogamous pairs only for the breeding season. Other species will then form monogamous pairs for a year or two, and some species for life. We're just going to sit here a little bit longer and enjoy the sounds of the bush and see what they get up to. Good morning, Jerome, and welcome to the show. Yes, they do really whistle. They've got a beautiful call that sounds something like this. And you often hear them calling when they're flying overhead, just before they get to a water body. Also, unlike typical ducks that quack, that belongs to the genus of Anas normally, these ducks actually belong to a genus that's called Dendrocygna, which means tree duck or tree perching duck, because of the behavior of many of the species that also will make, in this genus, that will also perch in trees. For me, this is probably one of the most beautiful of the smaller duck species in South Africa. However, there's one that always catches my attention, and that is the little white-backed ducks, which we sometimes find on some of the water bodies. However, I haven't seen one of those for quite a long time. So still preening away, making sure that their feathers are in good conditions. There's a number of other strategies that a host of different bird species will also use to maintain their feathers. Some birds will actually go directly into the sun. So firstly, they'll do that specifically that the sun can destroy harmful bacteria that might have formed onto the feathers. You also find that some birds will actually indulge in dust bathing. So quite often you find in arid areas that they will make a shallow little depression in the soil and then ruffle their feathers in this to get the dust onto the feathers to assist with getting rid of old preen gland oil. Some birds will also water bathe, so they directly go into the water to loosen preen gland oil, also with a function of cooling themselves down. And then one of the strategies that we also find with some birds, especially the crows in the northern hemisphere, is that they will often go and sit on top of chimneys and enter the top of a chimney and take mouths full of smoke that's coming out of a chimney and then placing that onto their feathers to get rid of the parasite. Another ingenious strategy which birds will also use to get rid of parasites that might be harmful towards their feathers is a behavior that's called anting. Quite often we'll see birds such as doves and drongos and a host of others actually going to sit on the road where there's a large number of ants. They will then allow the ants to climb onto their feathers. Once there's a sufficient amount of ants on their feathers, they will ruffle the feathers. That will agitate the ants, and then in response to that, they will release formic acid. This is also a behavior that's quite often practiced by species such as pangolin, where they will allow ants to climb underneath their scales. Once there's a sufficient amount of ants, they'll flatten the scales and agitate the ants, which will then release the formic acid, which will assist with the detergence of the parasites. In the meanwhile, we're going to sit a little bit longer at this little pan and see what happens, and we're going to hand you over to Tristan.
Maybe something will pop out at the pan. We're busy tracking a female leopard at the moment. I just heard some Franklin's alarm call. I mean, I'm taking a leap of faith here completely, and I've come right round because the road that she was walking on got very wet, and so we just had to loop around to the other side in the hope that they've come this way now. who this could be, I don't know. Either Sibui or Shidulu or Tlalamba, one of the three. They all like to come around this area, so we'll just see how we go. I don't see any tracks here, but I just heard Franklin giving out its little alarm. So I thought maybe it's this leopard has come this way. I don't see any fresh tracks here to indicate that she has come this side. Maybe she went a different way. Let's just check here quickly. The alarm call was coming just up ahead. We had Tlalamba here the other day, but this is normally Shidulu's little route that she walks, coming from Gari Main Treehouse area, and then she walks this side. Oof, this road is no good. Very, very eroded after the rain. She's being followed by hyenas, so it's tricky because you get the hyena tracks, but her tracks are not as easy to see after they've walked on top of them. So that alarm call was somewhere here. Alright, I'm gonna just check up ahead and then just turn off and see. Maybe I can hear it again and maybe pick up where that Franklin is. In the meantime, let's send you back to Steve.
Well, Tristan, good luck. I'm sure you are going to have luck there. There is a lot of skill involved in Tristan's luck. A lot of skill. Far more skill than we've had to put out this morning. We've just, we left camp. We'd heard some small contact calls from camp and we drove out and there they were. Splendid morning to be spending time with lions, but you can see why we track on the roads, everybody. Why this time of year it's a very good place to look. Most of the time it's a good place to look, but I mean, lions and leopards will move along these roads. They make life a lot easier for them, but they do go into the blocks, but they do walk along the roads for quite some time. And when you look at a pride like this, you really do wonder to yourself, how do they not catch every animal they attempt? And it is something, isn't it? Pride like this, 14, you'd think that they'd catch everything they attempt to catch, but yet this is the way of nature. The prides have evolved to be cooperative, but yet the youngsters, some of them are still inexperienced. We noticed earlier that the youngsters some of them weren't even roaring yet, which means that they're not quite yet fully fledged members of the pride. And they aren't really that good at catching their own food yet. Although they're very good at eating what's provided. They do often make mistakes. They often jump the gun a bit and attract the attention of the prey animal. And in saying that, the vegetation as it is now is also so difficult to see. The lions walk straight past two impalas. The impalas at one point, I think, saw the lions, but they didn't utter a sound. Because to do so would have been to give away their location. And by the way the lions were moving, the impalas could tell there was no intention. They hadn't been spotted, so why give ourselves away? It's often a trait you'll find with predators. Once they've been spotted, they'll just walk nonchalantly. And prey animals are actually quite okay to see a predator that's sort of not showing the intention of hunting, and they'll just watch it. But that is the case with lions. There's always a lion or two that you can't see. But they aren't sneaky. Lions can't be sneaky. They can't pretend to be hunting. They are hunting or they're not. There's no sneakiness. All the species we come across out here, their intentions are very clear. They don't have poker faces. I think we're the only species that's able to be deceptive and to deceive, to pretend one thing and then jump around the corner. Yes, well, Beth, at lion's tails, you can see that most of them are quite flat right now, but if a lioness was looking at you and her tail was flicking from side to side, and you're on foot, you're in a lot of trouble. As soon as the tail starts to flick up and down, she is about to charge. So there's definitely telltale, excuse the pun, signs in a lion's tail. But right now, when they're moving like this, there's nothing to it. It's just got a life of its own, really. But when they're thinking, they'll be standing there and the tip of the tail will just be going left to right, left to right. But if they're crouched staring at you and the tail is flicking side to side, there's an imminent charge. And when it flicks up and down, it's about to happen. So let's move up, catch up with our lions before we lose them. I don't think we will, if they stay on the road. Well, they're being very accommodating this morning. Aren't they being lovely? If they go off the road, we won't be able to follow. So we're having a wonderful time with them. Where they're going to end up is anybody's guess, but the clouds have definitely pulled in. It's a nice overcast morning, so we might have them moving for a while yet. But I think I heard we're going to be sending over to and beyond Punda. I wonder what the weather's looking on that side.
Welcome back, everyone. We have interrupted our search for cheetah because we almost got stuck on the floodplain. It was completely waterlogged, that open area where we were hunting for cheetah earlier. And we put 2 tires onto the grass and almost got stuck, so we had to abandon that mission. So we've decided to come and sit by this waterhole, which is also amazingly full after the rains. It's almost, I don't know if this dam can get any fuller. I've never seen it so full. In fact, 3 or 4 weeks ago, when I was here last, there was a small patch of mud at the bottom of this dam where there was barbel like rolling around because there was not one drop of water in here. And now it's within 3 weeks it's full again. So it's incredible. And there's hippos that have already made their way to this dam. Didn't take them long at all. It looks like a mother and a younger calf just looking at us. It's amazing how she can remain submerged with her ears, eyes and nostrils all above the water. So she's still got all of her senses in play, but 98% of her body is under the water. Oh, there's actually 3 hippos. So it didn't take very long for these hippos to find out that this waterhole is full again after being empty for so many months. And I think it's just because hippos do lots of moving around at night. So so when it was drier, in general on Punda, they would have all been congregated into a single waterhole, the kind of the biggest one that we have here. But they will all, every night, move long distances away from that waterhole to go and feed and graze on the grass. And I think these hippos must have just come across this waterhole on one of their forays to graze, realized, oh, it's full, and they've never went back to the big one. They just stayed here and they're going to make their home here. And this is just such good news for this area in general, because, oh, there's some white-faced whistling ducks coming into land here. Because we've been in the midst of a 6 or 7 year drought here in northern Zululand. And animals have struggled to find water for 6 years. There's been a few
Who wants to scratch that belly? Sorry about any technical issues you might have experienced there, everybody. These are the two lazy young girls who are hanging at the back. Just see if they can see the rest of the pride in the distance, and then as soon as they lose sight, they go and catch up. It's a bit of a leapfrog sort of morning. Super blessed with the amount of activity we're seeing. Often you can spend hours with lions. They can just be flat, and then you can spend some time where they're all so excitable. Just discussing with them some of the strengths and the weights and the speeds, and to think about these two young lionesses here with that power. They're not fully grown yet, but they're looking at the region of 120, 125 kilograms, so 250 pounds at the moment, each of them, with a charging speed of about 21 feet a second. It's about 90 kilometers an hour, 45 miles an hour at that weight. Now, they're still not fully grown. They're going to be 135, 140 kilograms at one point, and that's on empty tummies, on empty tummies. That's 280 pounds. I'm just discussing some similarities. The fastest human on earth, Usain Bolt, on a track with studs, nothing in the way, runs at about 37 kilometers an hour. That's 16, 17 miles an hour. Comparison is very, very hard to come by, isn't it? It's one of the reasons why out in the African bush, rule number one is you never run. And there's no way you're going to get away from anything out here. Even an elephant runs at 45 kilometers an hour. They don't run, they fast walk. Okay, let's move up. So it's the number one rule, if ever you are out on safari, it's don't ever turn your back and don't run, because the lion is going to chase you. So understand that. It's going to chase you if you run, and if you don't run, it's going to just stare at you and be like, why is he not running? Why is that object so confident? There's no way you're going to get away, and 135, 100 you, you're going to fall over. There's no chance of you being able to stand up. So just to put that into some sort of understanding for you. Okay, sounds like we got Pinda back up, so we're going to send you back over to them.
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry, we don't know what happened or why we lost you, but we are still at this beautiful waterhole, and I think we're going to stay here for some time. There's just so much going on. We've spoken about these hippos that have made their home here, but also, I don't know if you can see on that dead tree far in the distance, the other side of the waterhole, there's that white ball that's sort of stuck to the tree. That's a southern foam nest frog's nest. It's quite an amazing thing. It almost looks like a piece of plastic. And the first time I saw one, I actually thought it was a piece of litter. I went up to it and I kind of tried to pick it up or get it off the tree, and it's actually this ball of very, very dense foam, and it's made by a frog called the southern foam nest frog. And what they do is, after rain, a male and female will come together to spawn, and they'll secrete this liquid from between their legs. They'll churn it up with their legs, and then the female will lay eggs in the middle of that ball of foam, and when the tadpoles eventually hatch, they'll be able to eat their way through that foam. They'll be protected. The eggs will be protected from predators and other kind of things and the elements by that foam, and then the tadpoles will eat their way and wriggle their way out of the foam and drop into the water. So it's an amazing, amazing adaptation that those frogs have. And as soon as the rains come, they're just so obvious. They're all over the show. You haven't seen any crocodiles yet at this waterhole. I think the crocodiles have yet to discover that this waterhole is full. It is getting quite nice and warm now. I can feel the heat on my back quite nicely, so other reptiles may start to come out. You may see, not insects, reptiles basking on these banks later on in the day. So I think we're gonna stay here for a little while longer, see if any other animals come down to drink. But we are going to send you now to Tristan and his elephants and see what he's found that side.
Well, while Ross waits for anything to come down to drink, we are slowly waiting behind a really nice sized bull Ellie. He's got beautiful tusks as well. He's missing the tip of his tail too. He's got no hair on his tail, but he's a really beautiful boy. He smells bad though, unfortunately. He's in musk, so it's a lovely scent that we've got. But you can see his ivory there as he turns. A really nice specimen for a bull. Which we'll catch up with him once he gets towards quarantine. We'll be able to get around him and be able to see him from the front. For now, it's just about kind of following from a safe distance so that he doesn't get annoyed with us. But you can see there, that's a beautiful set of tusks for this area. We don't often see the big tuskers down in this part of the world. Here it's sort of southern part of the Kruger. There hasn't been always that many tuskers. There's the odd ones that come into this sort of southwestern corner of the Kruger system, but most of the big bulls hang around to the north in the Mopani thickets. That's where you really get the massive kind of tuskers that are around. But he's a really nice sized individual. I wanted to just try and get in front of him also so that I can start to see his ears a little bit better. Try and see if we've seen him before, because I seem to remember seeing a bull with very similar ivory like this last year. But we just need to double check and see. It's not Daryl, unfortunately, so a lot of you I know will be asking about Daryl. If those of you who don't know who Daryl is a big bull elephant that normally comes at this time of the year, but he didn't come last year, and so far no sign of him this year, which is a shame. I don't like it when we don't see Daryl. He's an absolute character, full of beans, but a really cool elephant. He's pretty chilled, so you can get some amazing sightings with him. All right, I'm going to just catch up with this guy. He's heading to where we can get around him, which will be good. Just with the leopard tracks, they go exactly where those Franklins were alarm calling, but the Franklins are alarm calling in the drainage line, so there's not really much more I can do other than just come around, which is what we were doing, just to see if she pops out somewhere here on quarantine. But you never know. I mean, she could also turn towards Zoe's. It's not exactly ideal because this block is quite big. This is not a very small block at all. But we'll just sit here for a little bit and listen out. And we've got this bull Ellie that we can spend some time with, and hopefully there'll be another alarm call, something like an impala. Moonbeam, yes, other animals will listen to alarm calls for their own benefit. That's why there are alarm calls, is those animals are telling everybody that they've seen something that's dangerous, to be careful. It's not just for their own safety, but for everyone around them. So, you know, squirrels and impalas and the likes are warning a whole bunch of other animals too. And you'll find when a squirrel starts to alarm, you'll find all the impalas will shoot their heads up and they'll start looking to try and figure out what's going on, or if a monkey alarms or whatever it may be, that will trigger other animals to be far more aware of their environment around them and make sure that they try and stay as safe as possible. Isn't he magnificent? I'm just going a little bit closer so we get behind or past this little bush, because he's going to feed on this marula that's here. He's an absolute gentle giant. He hasn't paid us one iota of attention so far. He's been happy just to do his own thing and basically feed on his marulas. I'm sorry if there's a bit of noise from my jacket. It's just the sun has come out all of a sudden and it is about 4 million degrees hotter than it was. So I just want to get it off. I do apologize that it's making a bit of noise. Always love being around these massive bull elephants. Imagine the stories they could tell of the travels that they've had. These guys, some of them can travel massive amounts of distance. And there's bull ellies that move, close. System, and that's just kind of the north-south way. East-west, they also move quite a bit, so obviously not as much because the Kruger is quite a narrow park. But they're all over the show, and they make use of the reserve to try and find all the food that they need. And it's why they come down now, is we've been harping on about it a bit, but Marilla's look, he's going to push. You hear all the Marillas that fell. Their strength in these guys is unbelievable. To push a tree like that and with enough force to shake the tree to drop that many Marillas is unbelievable. Serious power. Now the problem is at this time of the year is that after rain like we've just had right now, sometimes when they do that, because the soil is so saturated, the roots actually don't grip as well, and they can often just push these trees over by mistake. It's not what they're trying to do. They're trying more to kind of get the Marillas to fall. And sometimes they can push the whole tree around, and that tree you might notice has actually got a wire wrapping on it, and that's to protect it from elephants. The ellies lately particularly have been starting to debark the trees, the Marillas, and so that's just to stop them from doing that. If they can't get their tusk in and pull chunks off, they generally start to leave the tree alone, which is a good thing. How amazing is this bull though? He's beautiful. And like I say, he's very chilled. He's not very worried about us at all. As long as he can get to his Marillas, he is a happy lad. And I suspect he's going to spend the entire day on quarantine. There are so many Marilla trees here that he can eat, as well as grasses and foods on the edges of quarantine. I don't think he's going to go very far today. I think he knew exactly where he was going when he was walking up this road. Was very much aware that this was going to be a place where he was going to find decent amount of food, because he kind of was just making a beeline straight here. I found his tracks where that leopard kind of crossed the road, going up towards this area, and he was just on a beeline. He hadn't stopped at the Marilla that we were under. He had just walked straight through there. So he knew exactly where he was going and what he was looking for, which is this kind of Marilla grove that's up on top here. What always amazes me with these big bulls is, even for their size, is how quiet they are. I mean, this is a massive animal, and yes, he's not moving around all that much, but even just his feeding is slow and methodical, and there's very little noise that comes from them. Crazy when I see bulls like this. This is above average in terms of what we see down here in tusk size, but when you look at those and you compare them to the Magnificent Seven of what Kruger used to have in the sort of 80s, early 90s, those bulls are just on a whole nother level in terms of the size of their tusks. I actually was we have a museum in South Africa, in the Kruger Park, which is dedicated to elephants, and particularly to the Magnificent Seven. They were able to recover all of their tusks from the bush, and they've got them kind of mounted on the walls, so you can go and stand next to them and kind of have a look at these tusks. It is unbelievable to see the size of them. You forget when you don't go there regularly how big those tusks were and how tall those ellies were. Absolutely unbelievable. Seriously impressive. All of them were over 100-pound tuskers, and that's typically what a tusker is an elephant with ivory that's over 100 pounds. Not many left of them anymore, I'm afraid. Very few. Lots of them have been hunted and poached and all kinds of other things over the years. Not so much here in Kruger, but East Africa particularly. They've had a really tough time and really do monitor their tuskers quite a lot now, particularly in the Savo region. They're pretty good about just checking for their tuskers and making sure that they're doing all right. But yeah, it's not nice when we lose one of those grand old bulls. I wonder what happened to his tail, though. It's like somebody's gone and just sort of pulled out all his hairs and left his tail bare. That's not what's happened, obviously, but it's a strange kind of thing to have. Normally with bull ellies, you'll find if they've lost a bit of hair on their tail, and there's still one or two little kind of strands, but his is completely bare. Maybe he's got the equivalent of balding in a human. I think he's going to be here for a while. The number of marulas that fell from this tree when he pushed it was quite something. Wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere near that tree when he did it. I wonder if there's ever been a case where a leopard's been in a tree and an elephant's come and done this. Let's see if he does it again. It's crazy. The power is just unbelievable. And you see how many marulas actually fall. There's the squirrels are alarm calling now. I wonder if this cat is not coming this way. Clalamba the other day walked this very same route. We picked up her tracks in exactly the same spot and walked up this way. Maybe it's her. There's another squirrel starting. I did also see a martial eagle, which will trigger the squirrels, but the martial eagle wasn't where the Franklins were alarm calling to start with. It came from the south while I was following tracks on foot. So it's not the martial eagle that triggered the Franklins, but these squirrels could very well be the martial as well. I was just listening in case. It didn't sound like an intense enough alarm call for a leopard. When squirrels see a leopard, they get a very intense, very rapid call. It's different to when they see birds of prey. So I'll just keep an ear out while we sit with this guy. Maybe we'll get lucky and this leopard will pop out in front of us somewhere here.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, we're still here with our lions. Talamati Pride have been spotted by a herd of impala. They didn't make a very stealthy approach. A herd of impala. This is the same place we were a few nights ago when I had the Talamatis hunting for a very long time, if you recall that. It was probably the same herd of impala. There was no stealth at all. Lions just walked straight down the road, and the alarm calls have indicated that they've been spotted. And you notice how the impalas will stay watching them. They won't run away. Better the predator you can see. But the sun has burst through the clouds. And it looks like they might be getting ready to take up a little bit of shade. So there might still be some activity in them yet this morning. But you can see how we've been following them down the same road, stopping and starting, stopping and starting. So sometimes we have the ability to catch up with them quite quickly when tracking, and sometimes if they just start moving without the stopping and starting, it can make life a little bit easier. I mean, a little bit more difficult. But in the road all the way along here, we've had the tracks, the antics of them jumping, tackling and moving and lying down, and those are always evident when you're tracking. And when they're on a proper mission, proper hunt, you don't see as much play. You just see tracks moving, and you can see all of them. Look at the impalas going, how do I get that into my mouth? Wonderful two-shot.
we're just waiting for this hippo calf to pop his head up. You can see the bubbles that he's blowing on the right of her head. He's a lot more shy than his mom, and that makes a lot of sense because he still relies on his mom very much. There he is. He doesn't stay for too long on the surface. He feels a lot safer underwater. And young hippos are very vulnerable to predators without their mother, so that's why they have this sense of kind of a little bit more cautious than his mom. But yeah, hippos can spend 8 minutes underwater, which is a long time, and they actually can't swim. Hippos can only stand and walk along the bottom of the water, which is something that a lot of people don't know. But that tells us that this area that these hippos are standing can't be very deep. It's probably about 1.5 meters at most. So I just want to get back to a question that was asked last night in the evening drive by Biffle. I hope you're still watching Biffle. He asked which rhino species has better eyesight, black or white. And it turns out that black rhinos have much better eyesight than white rhinos. Very, very interesting. Something brand new that I've learned as well. And nobody really knows why for sure, but the sort of leading theory is that because black rhinos feed on bushes and trees, their heads are up above the grass much more often than white rhinos who are grazing and have their head down in the grass. Less need for eyesight, and that is why black rhinos have better eyesight than white rhinos. That is just a theory, but very, very interesting nonetheless. So thanks for your question, Buffalo. And if you do want to ask a question, don't forget, register on our Wild Earth website or head over to our live safari page and you can submit your questions there. And if you are under the age of 18, you can email us your questions at kidsquestions at wildearth.tv. As it gets hotter, this waterhole is going to be Dan, yes, it is such a treat to see this. It's been such a long time since there's been beautiful waterholes like this on Phinda. And we've, for so long, seeing animals having to drink from muddy water and dirty water, and a lot of animals have to risk going to waterholes where the predators have congregated around. And they just get picked off so easily. But now that there's so many waterholes and so many options for them, it's a lot better in terms of this, like animals' survival, not getting picked off so easily by predators around waterholes, and also there's just more water, so they are able to find it more freely. They don't have to walk so far to water, expend that energy that they would usually have had to. They can feed within 500 meters. There'll be a waterhole, and they can really put on a lot of good condition for the winter months. There was one particular waterhole on Phinda. I'm sure some of the viewers that are watching today must have remembered this episode. There was a mother cheetah with her 2 cubs that was so desperate to drink. They were so thirsty. They hadn't drunk in days. And cheetah are animals that are usually able to go indefinitely without drinking because they get most of their moisture from the food that they eat. But these 3 cheetah, mother and 2 cubs, were so desperate for water that they went and actually drank from a waterhole where they knew there was a crocodile in. And one of the youngsters was actually attacked and eaten by that crocodile. So it has been very, very difficult for a lot of animals in this drought. And so it is really, really a treat to see so much water around. So Ava, you've asked where do hippos sleep? That's a very good question. They actually sleep in the water, and they don't sleep at night like we do. They sleep during the day. So I think the one hippo on the left there, he could actually be on the brink of sleeping himself. Hippos probably don't sleep a full 8 hours completely knocked out like we do. They'll probably sleep 5 minutes and then wake up, and then maybe 10 minutes and then wake up. It's a very restless kind of sleep, and that's how most animals sleep out here in the bush, just because they have to be a lot more alert and aware than we do when we sleep. But hippos at nighttime is when they're most active, and they'll be walking around most of the night. An amazing bird that just flew over. Just trying to figure out what it was. It's gone now. So never mind. But we are going to stay here now. It seems like there's a bit of action that's starting to happen around this waterhole. So we're going to send you now to Tristan and his bull elephant, and we'll see you again shortly.
Well, that's good. It's always nice when there's a bit of bird life around. Pinda sometimes gets some very, very, very random birds that arrive in those areas. They had a Malagasy pond heron a few years ago, which was pretty crazy. Hopefully that'll show up at some point. We're still with our Ellie Bull. Squirrels are still shouting. I'll eventually get it out. But I think they're shouting for... I just saw that Marshall Eagle come over and land, and then there was actually quite a cool interaction, very brief but very cool, to see the pale-form Wahlbergs kind of trying to dive bomb this juvenile Marshall Eagle. So it just goes to show you how even a predator like the Wahlberg's eagle, which normally is causing the havoc, is actually scared of those Marshalls. And it's because Marshall Eagles are pretty feisty things and can actually take a huge amount of prey items. And so they sometimes will come down and actually sort of swoop and grab, the chicks of Wahlbergs and various other birds. So that's why you're seeing the dive bombing from the Wahlbergs itself. I'm hoping they'll come back because it was pretty cool to watch. But we've got a cacophony of noise. We've got a woodland above us, squirrel to our left that's still shouting, and our Ellie bull that's still going about life, eating marulas. He's literally just hammering them down one after another. It'd be amazing to know how many marulas a bull of this size is picking up in a day. On average, it must be in the thousands, because they literally just sit and do this day in, day out. You can actually see, if you look around this marula tree, how short the grass is. From each day, an elephant coming and visiting and walking around the tree and making sure that it eats everything that is there. If you look to the right of this kind of bush here, this where he's standing, you can see how much longer the grass is there versus what it is underneath the tree. It's like two different worlds. It's almost like somebody's come with a lawnmower and just cut around here. And that's just because the Ellies are trampling it as they're feeding, and aware of them kind of walking around the tree over and over again is what causes it. Let's see if we can see his guy. That's cool. And a little bit of salad just to wash down the fruit. Okay, buddy. Maybe it was getting too sweet. He needed to just change it up a bit. Runaway Pancake. That's an amazing name. It's not nice when your pancakes run away. But you're asking about marula fruits and whether they're crushed or the pit is crushed when an elephant eats it. No. So what these elephants do is they throw it in their mouth, and then they just break it slightly. And what happens is that ruptures the skin of the marula fruit, outbursts all of the juice, and then they just swallow it from there. So they're actually not really eating much of the flesh of these marula fruits. And when they defecate, and we'll try and see if we can find some dung just now, where you'll find the marulas in there, still with the skin on and the pip inside, and just the skin has been broken, where they've actually absorbed the juice rather than anything else. A marula doesn't have a lot of flesh on it. It's actually quite difficult to get the flesh off, and it's a very small amount. It's mostly juice and very, very highly concentrated with nutrients. Hello, boy. Oh, he is a magnificent bull, and like I say, completely relaxed. He's got a little abscess on his nose as well, an old wound that's probably still healing. It's like a little bump. You can see it on the right side of his trunk between the tusks there. Quite typical for them to have those little wounds on the trunk area. It's when they're fighting. Sometimes they'll nick each other with the tusk, and then it gets a little bit infected and kind of causes this little abscess. It's not an uncommon thing to see on Ellie bulls particularly. And, you know, funny enough, these bulls that have these massive tusks, it actually becomes harder and harder for them as the tusks grow. You know, they struggle to be able to fight with them. They get to a point where they're actually too long sometimes. And younger bulls with shorter tusks can do a lot more damage to them because of it. But he's still got a long way to go until I would call him a tusker. I mean, he's got nice tusks, but he's not in any way a big tusker bull, that's for sure. I'm actually going to keep quiet for you guys a little bit, because just all the sounds are so nice between the alarm call of the squirrel and the woodland and the Cape turtle dove and him feeding, the breeze that's blowing. It's such a peaceful setting in many ways. This angle is quite a cool angle. It's changed now, but I was going to say it's quite a cool angle to see his trunk and how thick it is at the sort of back end towards the mouth. You can see where a lot of the bulk comes from. This is so cool. Come on, boy, go up on your back legs for us. Wouldn't that be amazing if we got him doing that? You can see how these poor marula trees are denuded from the bottom. These guys are able to reach quite high, so they often are breaking these low branches and just kind of pulling them down. So you often find with marulas in this area, particularly the marulas that actually produce fruit, their low-lying branches are all broken, thanks to Ellies. The guy is trying to sniff for more. Isn't it interesting how he's varying his intake? So as much as he's enjoying the marula fruits, like I say, I think they get to a point where they get so sugary and so sweet and so kind of sickly that every now and then they just take a sort of mouthful of leaves or grass, and I think it just neutralizes that in some ways. I mean, it's like us as people, if we eat too many sweets, it's kind of, you get that sick feeling. And I'd imagine it's the same thing with these guys. So this is just providing a little bit more roughage, just so that their stomach doesn't get upset, and also probably just helps with being able to eat more of those marulas, because it's a finite resource. There's only so many marulas that will be produced during the course of the summer, and once they're done, they're done. So they're trying to get as many as they can for the nutrition point of view, but at the end of the day, they also need to worry about getting diarrhea and those kinds of things. I think this is more like roughage than anything else. So in the mornings, you know, a lot of people will have fruits and things, but they'll also have a high fiber cereal or something like that. It's, I suppose, a bit of a similar story. Hello, boy. Almost looks sleepy this morning. I suppose the weather is contributing to that sleepy effect. A mouthful of leaves. Why aren't you eating your leaves? He's literally just walking around with his entire mouth jam-packed full of leaves at the moment, and not eating them. There we go. Now he's taken them out and has started to chew them again. Very, very cool. Let's follow him around because he's heading towards where the squirrels are alarm calling. So if it is our leopard, then he is heading in that direction. All right, in the meantime, though, let's send you across to Steve with his tawny cats.
Well, come back to our very flat lions. There have been some very brave spur fowls moving in amongst them, and off to our left I can hear one vocalizing. A typical predatory alarm call. I wonder if there's a predator nearby. Boy, what do you reckon? So the clouds have covered over again. That patch of sun that blew through before has dissipated. Also the characteristic zit, zit, zit of the zitting cisticula above our heads. And the rattling cisticula. Shelley, I have. I once saw a lion sitting in the long grass, just like any of these were, and a quail emerged and he just grabbed it. She just gobbled it. It smacked her with a paw and just engulfed. That's the only time I've seen. They haven't shown any interest in the spur fowls here. The spur fowls are actually being very brave, nearly walking in amongst the lions. But this is a crested francolin off to the left, or a Natal spur fowl that I think has spotted either the Wahlberg's eagle that was around before, or it's finally spotted the lions. The calling has only started recently, but I'm looking with interest because you never know. I mean, we see things quite often in these environments whereby you've got a pride of lions or wild dogs, and then suddenly out of nowhere a leopard emerges. So I wouldn't be surprised if that bird was actually calling for something else. But that call that you can hear is often a very, very reliable call for a predator. But we've been here for 15 minutes with the lions and it didn't make a sound. Now it started. No doubt if a leopard did pop out, he or she would get a bit of a fright to discover what's lying in the road up ahead, but lions aren't too cognizant of anything. Bluenose, I don't think they breathe heavy when they sleep. I think it's just more noticeable. They definitely breathe heavier when they've got a full belly. That's because the food pushes up on the diaphragm and it means that their lung capacity is reduced. And you don't really notice it when they're walking, but when they're lying down, they do seem to have a bit more, you do seem to see the breathing more. They're quite incredible that they were all looking quite full this morning, and now that little bit of exercise and exertion, the play, even though they didn't get very far, it's definitely aided in some digestion, and that's probably why they're all so tuckered out now. They've only walked about 2 kilometers, but they've been jumping up and down and tackling each other. You can hear a Swanson's spurfowl calling. They're definitely not the most common of the spurfowls that we have around. Okay, well, we're going to stay here, and while we do so, send you over to Prylands, other side.
Good morning and welcome back to Eco Training Prylands. We just came up upon a termite, a late emergence. Quite late in the season for them to still be emerging. However, with this temperatures as well as sufficient amount of rainfall, they've now started feeding on these, and a large number of birds have come in to come and feed on these termites. As you can see, some of the termites later are already flying off. These are being hawked, while those that are coming straight out of their little U-shaped burrows are being fed on the ground. There's a number of different bird species over here. We've got European rollers, which is a migrant all the way from Europe, which travels from 10 to 12,000 kilometers into southern Africa. We've got magpie shrikes, which is a blackbird with incredibly long tails. There's also a fork-tailed drongo, red-billed buffalo weaver, the blackbird with a red bill and red feet. And then there's also a red-billed hornbill sitting right at the entrance, the exit of where these termite lates are coming from. So as you probably know, termites are an incredibly rich source of protein, and therefore sought after by a wide range of different animals, birds, and even humans that will feast on them. There's a yellow-billed hornbill that just came in. So just to give you an overview of termites, if we look at the social structure of termites, there's a wide range of different social structures which we have, ranging from king and queen, workers and soldiers, and then the last group of termites, the lates, they generally will come out after there's a sufficient amount of rain and when they're ready to be released. So technically they're future kings and queens. They'll fly off, they will land somewhere else, and then males and females will meet up and then form a new colony. Sometimes some of the animals that I have seen over the years feeding on termites, when there's an emergence that's like this, ranges from jackals. I've also seen a number of different fox species, hyenas, and even lion that will lap them up. Dwarf mongooses, that's another species that will also sometimes will feed on them. A wide range of different other bird species coming in. Birds with white crowns, those are called white crowned shrike. One of my favorite little social shrike species. Unlike the typical shrike, they occur mostly in single groups. These are social birds that form quite large groups. There's quite a few of the hornbills that I've noticed over the last few days that are still nesting and flying with food towards their nests. So what we generally see with the hornbill species is that the female will be sealed in with a nest where she will lose her feathers and regrow them in that period of time that she's in that nest burrow. And then the male will assist her with bringing food towards the nest. And once that female has regrown her feathers, she will then also assist the male with further feeding of the chicks.
We're still with our bull Ellie. We've managed to get around him, and he's going to walk towards this marula tree that does have fruit underneath, so I'm hoping that he's going to just come around the bend and then stop on the road itself. Otherwise we're going to have to reverse back. I was trying to give him as much space as possible, but there are some marulas that hopefully will deter him from coming past. We might see him shake this marula tree too. It'll be interesting if he does. But you see how that nose is, that little trunk is working the whole time. Pretty cool that he's coming through like a little natural archway between the marula tree on the left and the bush willow on the right. It's framing him really nicely as he comes around. Now the marulas are right where he is now. There we go. He's just picked one up. So let's see if he pushes this tree like he did the last one. It's definitely slowing him up now. You can see he's now just showing off his feet a little bit. Just checking around where the nearest ones are. There we go. Gonna have a little scratch around. Let's try and pick them up one by one. He's cool. We like him. He's a nice bull. This is not like his grumpy young man we had yesterday afternoon. He's far more relaxed. He's going to just come around. I wonder if he's not going to that other marula that's on our right-hand side here. Might be. Right, well, we'll watch him just walk off, probably carry on and go and see what else we can find.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Telemati Pride. The sun is trying to break through the clouds. So while we wait for our lions to do something, I've picked a little flower. Now, wildflowers, everybody, you must make sure not to pick many. Flowers, purpose of a flower is to provide pollen and nectar for insects and for organisms, and then also to provide the livelihood for that plant itself. But this particular flower is called the wild foxglove and is very abundant. Ceratotheca triloba. It's a very beautiful, beautiful purple flower. And it's actually very edible. In Zimbabwe, the locals will cook the leaves as well as the shoots, and they use it as a sort of a replacement for spinach. Last year, I did an entire segment on the show where I ate, I think, 3 or 4 different plants. We cooked them up, and then I brought them back to camp for the girls in camp with me, and we ate it. Megan, Lauren, Louise, and some of it was pretty decent, and some of it wasn't as nice as you'd like it to be. But we get quite used to sort of commercially grown foods. We get used to the flavour. But one of the reasons that I did pick it is because the fresh leaves themselves, crushed and put along the skin, works as a very nice insect repellent. You can even make it into sort of a reusable one by adding into some sort of spirits with some water, and then it can be something that you can keep in a jar or a bottle, and you can apply it to your skin. I like to just grab the leaves themselves and just rub it along my skin where the mosquitoes are quite sort of adamant to eat me. but also has been used, oopsie, let me put it back there, sorry about the wind and my head. It's also been used as decoctions for washing and cleaning the face, and if you have any eye ailments, you can use it as an eye and face wash. And root infusions have been administered to the ear to help with earache. So what I love about this is the leaves themselves actually got a very nice peanut butter smell. Very nice peanut butter smell. So if you like sort of a peanut buttery flavored spinach, it's what it tastes like. But the flower is very pretty, isn't it? You can see that the flower's got these little landing strip lines over there, being purple. That would be a ultraviolet sort of UV sort of light, so nocturnal sort of insects would land here, and they'd use this landing strip to go inside the flower, which is a long tube, and inside, just on the top, you can just see a little bit of pink. That's where the pollen is. And to be able to get to the nectar, the insect has to go all the way inside, touching the pollen to the top of his head, or its head. And then when it goes to another flower, it'll take pollen from its body, top of its head, and deposit it in another flower in the same way. So both male and female parts are just up at the top of the flower there. Can you see it? You can just see that sort of pinkish thing right at the top inside the flower there. There's the pink, and the yellow is the pollen. So deep inside is where the nectar would be. So it wouldn't be accessible to all insects. Most likely not birds either. Nocturnal insects definitely go for whites and purples. Very pretty, isn't it? Very, very pretty. So the European foxglove, everybody, just be very careful. This one's very edible, but the European foxglove is quite poisonous. So don't suddenly go and say, oh, Steve said I can eat the foxglove, because over in Europe, that one will kill you. So please be very careful. Don't just go and eat things. Please. Very good. Well, from a wonderful flower to some lions in the background. Isn't that gorgeous? So we can talk about things while lions are not doing much. Okay, well, we're going to send you over to Prylands quickly, who's managed to show you some birds.
Good morning and welcome back to Eco Training Prylands. We're still sitting with our Mite late eruption, and at the moment we've also been joined by a red-crested coron, which is the larger of the birds which is in that circle. He's noticed that there was quite a lot of activity from a host of other birds and started making his way from over 100 meters away down the road to come and investigate what's going on and then join in onto the feast. So for those of you who are familiar with red-crested coron, this is one of the birds that quite often has a very elaborate display flight. So quite often when we do see them, they are on the ground. Once they are triggered to start their display, they will fly in an upright position some 20 meters up and then do a backward somersault and then come straight down towards the ground. And this is all done to impress the ladies. And in the meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to Tristan while we're watching what these guys are getting up to.
He's still with our bull Ellie. I was going to leave him, but I don't know, just felt like sticking with him a little while longer. He's such a beautiful guy, and at the end of the day, if that leopard is around here and it is moving in this area, and there's a few impalas around, there's various animals, and they're going to let us know pretty quickly. So instead of just driving around aimlessly for a bit, maybe it's worth just being patient and just staying with him and seeing. I mean, I'm not convinced that this leopard is still in this area. I mean, I think that was pretty early last night, those tracks. It's difficult to say with the substrate the way it is. And the hyenas have definitely walked over the top of her tracks. So, I mean, that could be this morning, but her tracks just didn't look fresh, not like they were made right now. So I don't know. She could be, I suppose. But with the lions calling and making noise, I would have thought that would have diverted her a little bit, whoever it may be. So maybe she's kind of gone more towards the sort of western side, towards Zoe's, that area. I might go around that side and just have a little look, see if the trucks come out somewhere there. I was hoping that it was going to be Shadula and she was going to be lying in one of these marula trees. There's some beautiful marulas in this area, and we often find her not too far from where I am now, lying up in some of these trees. She's a cat of habits. She's got a particular tree that she likes. I think Trisha's had her in it 3 or 4 times. I've had her twice in that tree. So she likes a certain tree that's not far from where we are now. So we might just go and sort of bumble past that one and just see if maybe she's not lying up there and taking it easy. But at least there's animals around that will indicate, and why not sort of sit and enjoy the majesty of a big bull elephant rather than just driving around. You know, I think sometimes it's important just to appreciate when you've got one of these beautiful specimens like this that is around. He's going to push a tree again. It never gets old. I just love the sound when all of them drop. So you always got to, when you're watching Ellie's in marula season, always don't park under the marula with the elephant for 2 reasons. One is you're going to get pelted with them. The second reason is he's going to get pretty testy if you parked over the top of his marulas. He's not going to be a happy camper. So always just park away from the radius of the tree, and then you'll be fine. And they generally are more interested in their marulas than they are you. But if you're over the top of their marulas, then they get pretty feisty pretty quickly. They don't like it when somebody blocks them from their little tasty treats. So always to keep that in mind if you're ever out on a safari of your own. If you're parked under a marula tree and an elephant's approaching and it's marula season, best move. Also, don't park under a marula tree anyway, even if there's not an elephant there. Those fruits fall at random times and will put a nice little ding in your car. So don't do it. It's probably a better idea just to park away from it, even though they're so nice and shady at times. It's not the best idea. The only time that you have to sometimes do it is when there's a leopard around in the tree. But even then, you know, it's better to park kind of away from the tree itself. If you're that close, then you've gone wrong somewhere. It's interesting weather this morning. There's a bit of a breeze that's picked up and more heavy cloud rolling in. I'm not sure if we're going to get more rain this afternoon. It looks like we might. It's certainly looking different to when we actually woke up this morning. Gary, you're asking if I've ever seen an Ellie get sick from too many marulas. I've never seen them vomit or anything like that, but I've seen them get massive amounts of diarrhea. Actually, I was once told a story about a guy that was driving in a park in South Africa called the Pilanesberg. And often in South Africa, if it's a coolish day like today, because when you're driving in these reserves in your own private vehicles, it's not open vehicles like what we have. So it's nice to have your windows down just to be able to, smell the smells, hear the things. Anyway, he was driving along and he had his arm on the outside of not the outside, but like leaning on the window. And it had rained the night before, and so he drove, and he thought it was just a puddle. And as he drove through it, there was just this spray up of this putrid marula enriched, disgusting kind of yellow elephant diarrhea that sprayed all over up his arm, all over his back seat. Pretty funny story, actually. So it does happen when they eat too many of them that they get a bit of diarrhea and a loose gut. But they survive from it. It's not going to cause them too much of a problem. They just need to eat some normal stuff for a while, and then they generally come right pretty quickly. I wonder if he's going to shake the tree again. I suspect he might. He's going to feed, and you'll see he'll feed a circle around the tree first. It's amazing also to me how this bull elephant knows exactly which trees are the ones that he needs to go to. He just walked the whole length of quarantine. So he went from the southern side of quarantine to the northern side. We've crossed the whole way. He fed off 2 different marulas on the way, the one that we watched him initially, and then the one we kind of briefly paused with him. Otherwise, he bypassed the other 40 marulas that are spread across this open clearing, knowing full well probably that most of them are either a male and haven't produced fruit, or the fruit from that particular tree is no good. So he knows exactly which trees he wants to feed from, and that means that this bull elephant has been here before. If he knows the area and has been here before, he can then make those judgment calls. And it was interesting because he was walking straight down the road, past all these marulas, and then he just cut off, and it was a dead straight line to where he is right now. He hasn't veered off at all. So it's not like he's just randomly come across this tree and been like, oh, this is the tree I want. He's beelined straight for this little grove. There's 2 marulas here that he stopped and fed at. And so he knows this area, which means we must have seen him at some point between all of us. The amount of days we spend out here, I'm sure we've had him on camera somewhere down the line. It'll be pretty distinctive going forward. You know, if he's got no little tail hairs, you should be able to recognize him pretty easily. That combined with the tusks that he does have will stand him in good stead. It's amazing to me just how quickly they are able to clean up the floor of these marulas. You know, when you see him pushing the tree and you see how many of them drop, it's pretty incredible that in the space of 10 minutes he's able to actually pick up those 30 or 40 fruits that have dropped in that little round circle, and does it quickly and then back again, pushes, goes again, and just keeps doing this to marula trees all day long. Amazing. And he's an absolute gentleman, this elephant. I mean, we've followed him for a long way now, and he's not even remotely cared that we've been around. He's kind of just had his normal little musbull swagger, and other than that, hasn't shaken his head at us really, hasn't done anything. He did urinate and defecate right in front of us, which I'm not really sure what to make of that. Maybe he's just like, you guys are irritating, so you can just have this visual. I'm not sure. Anyway. All right, so I think I'm going to bumble. We'll leave him here now, let him carry on. In the meantime, let's send you across to Steve. I think he's still with his lions. Let's see what they're up to.
Well, everybody, our lions are slowly but surely moving off the road into the thickets, into the Gwaru thickets. Not all of them yet, but most of them have moved towards where the impala were last seen. So we're going to follow them for a little bit longer, but if they do go off road and they all go under the trees there, it'll be it. We're going to leave them. Don't know if they're all going to settle in the shade there, but it seems likely. We've just got a little bit of a roadblock at the moment, so we can't move anywhere. At least we do think so. We do believe the evokers are the fathers, Darkmane specifically, but it's hard to say. Darkmane has hung out with this pride for the last 2 years. He's almost been inseparable. But I haven't seen him with them lately. He's probably moved off to go try sow his seeds elsewhere. But then I didn't see him mating with any of the females, so I'm not sure. But as far as I'm aware, due to his presence, it makes sense that he is, or at least the brothers are. 2 yawns. That one is having a drink. Lots of puddles everywhere, everybody. Leslie, there's a good chance it could rain. There's definitely some more clouds pulling in. I really hope it doesn't. There we go. He's finally up. He's going to move off to join the rest of the pride. Just thinking about it. It's so far away. I really have to walk all the way over there. Well, King B, rain hasn't affected our tracking too much because, we've just been finding the lions. Just hasn't been hard to find them. But the rain is going to make things very tricky. So far, the animals have been sticking to the road, but we haven't had to really go out of our way to find anything. Or I haven't anyway. You can ask Tristan. He hasn't really managed to pick up on too much in the way of tracks. But in the soft sand patches, I'll demonstrate for you now, the very soft sandy patches where the soil has been sort of gathered on my right over here, you'll see that tracking is made quite easy. Just here, boy, you'll see all these tracks in the sand here. But now the problem is with these tracks in this very sandy alluvial soil is that they are, and they look very fresh for days to come. So those have just been made, but those are going to maintain without any rain. Those are going to look like that for days. So to gauge freshness becomes tricky in this sort of sand. But we know that these are fresh because they were just here. But all around where you don't find these soft sandy patches, the ground gets quite hard. And for the most part, tracking is going to be a little bit more tricky. But it is what it is. Let's see if we can get this gentleman having a drink there. There we go. Whoa. There's a lovely little shot of him having a drink. Cats, you reckon other cats are more brightly coloured than lions? I suppose when you look at a leopard, it looks a bit golden, but essentially that contrast in black, white and gold on a leopard or yellow makes them very camouflaged in the winter months, very camouflaged in those sort of times when there's not that much cover, whereas lions lions have evolved on the African plains where they fit in beautifully with the winter grasslands. So right now the vegetation is very green. They don't seem to blend in very well, but they can tuck themselves very low. They do very well at camouflaging in an open grassland, moving through the long swathes of grass. Masai Mara is an example in those brown grasslands, whereas a leopard can hide and is dappled in the dapple light, very limited camouflage or very limited cover. And cheetah, why cheetah are that color? They are actually very camouflaged in their own right. Caracal, though, are reddish brown in color, so I wouldn't say they're brightly colored. And serval are very spotted. So those spotted camouflages are called disruptive camouflage, and it's designed to break up the three-dimensional characteristics of the animal so that they blend in. When they got a background behind them, they just blend in. Obviously, when they're standing out in the middle of the open, they stand out quite well. But when they're in the smallest amount of camouflage, all those different colors gives different depth, different perception, and makes them nearly invisible. Bearing in mind, we can see color and depth. All the other animals that are seeing them don't see color. They're trying to see them in this shape, and that takes the shape away. So my boy is still there. He's going to find the rest of the pride. They've just got it hidden in the thickets over here. I don't think they're going to go very far today. Okay, well, it sounds like Tristan's having a ball with his elephant bull. I wonder if he's still eating marula fruits.
Well, we're still with our Ellie bull. We just did a loop round just to check if there's any sign of Shadulu coming past, but it didn't seem like there was. It seems like she's maybe not the culprit. Maybe it's Tlalamba. And she's gone a different direction. We'll have to, I don't know, go and just double check where we last had those squirrels alarm calling, have a look around there. All right, buddy, lots of swagger as he goes around. Makes me laugh. Anyway, we literally just caught him kind of coming around to check a block, so we're going to leave him carrying on. He's going to go and disrupt Steve with the lions if he carries on that way. So I'm sure Steve will be welcome to see him. I wonder if the lions will be, probably not. Bull this size will chase those lions all over the place. They're not exactly that friendly to lions. All right, let's try this again. Come on, leopard. Out you come. I don't know. She could be anywhere, really, actually, by now. It's like I was saying earlier, the tracks didn't seem to be right now this morning. So, she could have passed through here and I just missed the track somewhere. It's very possible with the roads in the condition that they're in. And the fact that you're trying to kind of scan everywhere and stay on the road itself. Spotting tracks becomes the last of the worries. When it's dry, track is an easier thing to see and you're generally not worried about the condition of the roads. But now it's a little more tricky. You're not always looking for tracks. You're typically sort of looking for anything that can potentially cause damage to the car, like massive bumps or eroded sections or anything like that. I have this feeling, I don't know why, that this cat is still around. Evidence points to it probably not being around. I don't know why, I just have a feeling it's still here. Sometimes these feelings you shouldn't ignore. They can lead you to good things sometimes. Your feelings are never the greatest. I don't know. But I always try to listen to them. Instinct is something that one should always use. It typically leads you to the right things. Tabo, you're asking about how long the no off-roading lasts and who makes the call. So the call is made by the basically landowner and the management of the landowners, or that manage the camps. They're tasked with just making sure that they protect the property as much as possible. Ultimately, as much as it's nice to be driving around and doing all these things, you're also out here to try be as sensitive to the ecosystem as possible and to try and not make your footprint massive. It's very unsightly to drive in an area where there's massive, big, muddy ruts everywhere into the bush. So they're the ones that make the call. As to how long the no off-roading lasts, well, that depends on how much rain we get, how much sunshine we get. But it's going to be a while. I reckon a week at least at the moment. There's no ways you can off-road. I mean, look at this. Here is a prime example. If you look at this road here, the water is running. Now, this water, we haven't had rain for 24 hours. This is literally just coming out of the ground. Now, if I go off-road here, what's happening is underneath the surface of the soil where it doesn't look like it's flowing, there is all of that coming out, and so it just gives way. Once you break the surface, you just sink, and all you're going to be doing is getting stuck and damaging the bush and causing these big ruts, which then leads to erosion, which could cause massive amounts of problems within the area. And so it's just not worth going off-road for this. So we'll have to wait until, you know, the seeps start to slow down a little bit. The crests probably will be a little bit quicker. You might be able to start off-roading on a crest in maybe 4 or 5 days if we get some really good hot sunshine and no rain. But the seep lines are going to be maybe even a month longer. They're so full at the moment, and it's not like the rain's done. You know, we're still in our rainy season. There's a lot of rain forecast. I see there's a potential of another cyclone developing now off the coast of Madagascar, that exactly the same place where Eloise was. So there's a lot that can happen, and quite frankly, I'll be surprised if you can cross a seep line within the next month. But like I say, it would have to be hot and dry for the entire period for that to happen. But basically, it's just the guys that are on the ground that will check and see. You know, luckily, Steve and I, given that we've spent a lot of time out in the bush, we sometimes get a lot of responsibility, and our input is taken into account, which is nice. The guys do ask us, and we try and be as respectful to the property as possible. And right now, like I say, the fact that we can't off-road, it's not the end of the world. We off-road for 340 odd days of the year most of the time. It's really not a lot of time that we're not allowed to off-road. And like I say, it also gives the animals a break, it gives the bush a break, it gives our cars a break to a degree. And so it's not the worst thing, you know. I always think people see no off-roading as a very negative thing. And while it does make life harder and it makes the ability to follow animals harder, it's not necessarily the worst thing. Why are you guys shouting? Little birds that are making their little alarm chirp. So when I check around the corner here, Tlalamba, she likes to sit right here. I've almost driven over her before because you don't see her, particularly if it's in dreary weather. There's a little two-track, and she often sits around this bush, and as you come around the corner onto the two-track, she often lies there, but she's not there today. You can just see it coming out here, that area there, but she's not to be seen today. I'm going to go quickly check the bush pride to see if maybe there isn't a cat lying up there, and if not, then we're going to carry on and bumble and see what else we can find.
Welcome back to And Beyond Ngala. We have found some bachelor buffalo over here. They are looking quite old and they're hiding incredibly well. But you can see how much character this male has on his boss, on his horns. And it's been quite an interesting morning. The weather has been very up and down here. We've had some drizzle. It looks like we've got some more rain coming, and I think that's why these buffalo are feeling a little bit nervous. Just have a listen to the noise of them moving. You can even hear them breathing when they're breathing out at us. And all the birds around us. There's even a yellow-billed oxpecker on that one's head. So everybody's feeling a little bit nervous today with the weather being a bit cold. We know that the Birmingham Pride was last seen in this area, just down the road in a clearing. And so we're not really sure where they've gone to. We've checked pretty much everywhere that we can this morning. But what I am going to do is actually keep going and see if we can find them in the clearing. We've just got to hope, really. But it's been a lovely morning. We've gone to all the river crossings in the area. I've stuck my toes in the water. And we've been looking for any fresh signs. We do have tracks of the lioness that has youngsters. And so we are hoping that she is in this area somewhere. But at the moment, I can feel the drizzle coming in again. So we're not 100% sure what's going to happen for the rest of the morning, but we're hoping. We're hoping. But it is an absolutely stunning morning. The temperature is perfect at the moment. It's not hot, but it's also not cold. I'm definitely going to keep looking for those Birminghams, and hopefully I can show them to you a little bit later, provided it hasn't started raining.
Sorry about that, everybody. We've moved on from our lions, though. They've all crawled underneath the bush and they've gone to sleep, so there was no more view. Moved on. We're now on our northern boundary. Drive around, see what's been going on. Gonna come in at Gallagher and then go back down Aubrey, see. Oof, the sun is now coming out nicely. So we need a few days of sunshine to really dry things out. Ooh! Okay, well, we're going to get back into Djuma in a moment, and while we do so, send you back over to Ambionpinda.
Welcome back, everyone. We found a beautiful yellow-billed stork standing on the edge of this waterhole. And just look how stunning the colors are on this bird. They're so vivid at the moment in the sunlight. And what I find most striking about on the white back, look, if you can see closely, I hope you can, there's just a shade of pink on the white. Beautiful yellow bill, and then almost a bald head with no feathers on its forehead around its eyes, just that very bright red. Look how it's using its foot to it's got a bit of an itch. It may have some mites or some other parasites in the feathers around its neck. Birds do get parasites like all other animals, and they have to take a lot of effort to make sure that they keep their feathers clean and healthy, so that they prevent those parasites for being in their skin and fur. I mean feathers. So one of the ways they do that, and it's kind of this time of day where the sun is getting hot, we might see this stork stretching out its wings for the sun to actually kill those little mites that live in amongst its feathers. The birds also preen themselves. They'll use their bill to rub a special kind of oil, which is coming from a gland on their bill, around their feathers, just to keep them in good condition. Because you can imagine, if birds lose their feathers, or if their feathers are broken and in bad condition and they can't fly, it's very debilitating to them. They can't escape predators. predatory birds like eagles and falcons can't hunt, so maintaining their feathers is of an utmost importance to them. At the moment, this stork just seems to be waiting, very relaxed next to the waterhole. And what he might also be doing is just keeping a beady eye on that shallow water close to the edge, because what this stork eats is fish and sort of crustaceans, frogs, snails, anything that he can kind of get his bill around and swallow. And what he'll do when he sees that there's some activity there, he'll go and stand in the water with his bill in the water open. So basically with a wide open mouth, deep in the water, in the mud, and then he's got lots of little nerve endings around that bill. It's actually quite a sensitive part of his body, so he can feel anything that swims into his bill or brushes past it, and as soon as he feels movement past that open bill, he'll snap it shut and grab whatever's inside. So he's very much a sit and wait kind of predator. He doesn't go chasing after fish like other kind of herons and storks. He just sits and waits, and then anything that comes towards him. It's also a beautiful little lapwing, blacksmith lapwing in the background, just scuttling around past the heron. You see, it gave him quite a wide berth. And there's some more that's in the foreground here that you can't see. Maybe he's coming to join them. Judy, you're right. He does look like a stork lawn ornament, probably because he's just been frozen solid since you've seen him. We're waiting for him to move, but he's very content just to sit and watch for now. See those knees of his? I don't know if you can see that big knobbly knee joint. They actually bend backwards. So sometimes they bend, a human leg would bend. And sometimes you'll see storks sitting on their knees with their feet facing forward. And that's kind of their most relaxed position. That's how they sit down. And you'll often see them sunbathing with their wings outstretched, sitting on their knees in the heat of the day. And it's quite different to see only one yellow-billed stork. Normally they're in pairs or in small little groups. Sometimes they're in big groups. Sometimes they're in big groups.
Right, so unfortunately, Pinda's got a bit of a tech issue, but I'm 99.9% sure that there is a leopard just to our left here. I'm just trying to see if we can find it. We've had Franklins come flying out, bursting out of the grass and going crazy, and then landing in a tree and just shouting. It's right where the last tracks were as well. So I'm just trying to see if I can see anything. I mean, obviously we've got to wait for it to kind of come into a point where we can see whatever it might be, but this Franklin was very upset. It was sitting in the tree and just going constantly after it came out, and it kind of flew out of the block on our left here and landed on a tree on our right. So I think whatever it is moving through slowly this way. It could be a big snake. It's possible. Big snakes often do cause a little kind of what would you call it, a ruckus in the Franklin world. But my guess is that maybe, just maybe, this leopard that we were following tracks for, which would make sense for Tlalamba. We had her in this block a few days ago when she was up in that beautiful tree. That was right here. So she could very well be the one that is around. I'm just checking this road because this road can be a little bit wet at times, but it's okay. It's nice and hard under the tires. We're all good. problem is how long is it going to take her to get through? Is she, stopping and sniffing things? Is she scent marking? Is she sitting? These are all questions that we don't have the answer to right now. And like I say, it could be that it's a snake, but I don't know. The tracks all point in this direction. The way that Franklin kind of flew up. Now, often with cats, leopard particularly, once they get frightened, they then try and fly to the nearest tree, and then they sit up in the tree, and then they just make this really odd sound where it's just constantly kind of shouts at this cat until the cat moves away. Then they come back down again, which is exactly what this Franklin was doing. So let's just see around this corner. I know the other day when she was sitting in a tree, it was just here on our left. All right, so while I kind of move along this road and just see if anything pops out, let's send you across to Steve. Sounds like our Ellie has joined him at the Lions.
Hello, everybody. I think we've caught up with Tristan's elephant. Hello, big guy. Are you magnificent? You are truly a magnificent animal. So we came around the corner and we saw him in the road. So we just pulled off the road slightly. You'll see we just moved over and gave him the space. And he came close to us. If he was very upset, he would have shown some sign of that a little further away, and then we would have done something else with our time. But he walked straight up to us, gave a little hello. He's in full must. Now, many people talk about elephants in full must to be like aggression. It's not the case. It's about respect. And that right there deserves a lot of respect. Okay. I love it. We spent a bit of time with him. I know Tristan's been with him for some time, but obviously Tristan's got his leopard tingling sensation, which when I get very excited about. Tristan, I think, lives with that sensation in his belly. I want to actually follow this guy for a little bit because he's walking straight toward where the lions were left. I don't think he'll do anything to them because they're all gone under the shade now. But it'd be interesting to see how they react. So there's a typical sign of an elephant bull in must, if you can get him framed there. You see, he puts his trunk up on his tusk from time to time. But you can smell him. The back of his legs are dripping. But he showed no signs of agitation, no signs of aggression, everybody. And he does have some magnificent tusks. And you see the way the body is moving. He's not really moving for feeding, although he does grab bites along the way. He's moving and sniffing. And there's been a herd of elephant through here last night. Their activity was all over the road. And that's why when we look at tracks of elephant, you'll actually be able to see. If you come back over here, Paul, you'll see on the road here is this little dragging mark. That's a classic example of a male elephant. A little bit closer, right in front of the car here, you'll see the drag mark on the road. There we go, just at the bottom of the picture. You see those on the bottom left? A bit more to the left. Yes, you see those marks there. That's from his trunk going left and right. And that's a classic case of a male elephant trying to smell the ground. You can almost see the zigzag, left, right. That is the sign of a male elephant following females. So let's carry on. That's what he's interested in. He might snack and drink along the way, but he won't be doing much of that. And that's another reason why they get quite stressed out in must. And if you do push him and cause him any angst, he'll push back. But we didn't do any of that. We saw him, we pulled over, gave him space. He walked right past. Isn't that beautiful? I think that's magical. So it is important to know if an elephant bull is in must versus not, because he can have a shift in behavior. He can have a shift, but we're not going to be encouraging him any shift. Ooh, you smell that, boy? Isn't that lovely smell?
That's called must, with an H. M-U-H-S-T, must. You see his trunk dragging on the floor now. Darcy, and you notice that swagger? That is a bull elephant in must. That's how they swagger. You can actually see him from the front because the head is also lolling as he moves. And often the trunk will go onto the tusks like that, and his head is moving left and right. He can probably also pick up on the smells of the lions. Not far, probably 100 yards from where the lions are left. I don't think he's going to interact with them in any way. He's got ladies in the nose. Well, let's have a look. Just have a vehicle up ahead. They're probably coming to try to find the lions. So elephant, bull and must, move out of the way. Don't block his way. You see the trunk very actively sniffing the ground. Rosemary loves the flat as a pancake feet. Well, Rosemary, the feet actually aren't flat. They're called near ungulates, which means they're actually walking on their toes. And inside that big pad, if you looked at the foot from the front, it would actually be elevated. And then the heel of the foot is actually an enormously big sponge. So as the elephant puts its foot down, the weight pushes that sponge down and actually propels the body forward. So it's designed to actually help in motion, in locomotion. So he's going to say hello to the car there. He's going to say, hello, do you see me? You're not in my way, I'll just keep going. So the feet do look very flat on the bottom, but that's an enormous callus. An enormous callus on the bottom of foot that basically houses the shoe, which is the big sponge-like propellant inside the foot that helps to actually push them forward with each movement. That's why the elephant's foot expands when they step, and as they release, it releases again. It enables them also not to get stuck in mud. Oh, boy, we got some fresh lion tracks in the mud here. Some very fresh lion tracks. I reckon these are about an hour and a half old, these ones over here. Okay, well, let's carry on. Let's see where he's going. I'll show you, they're just over here. Isn't that a lovely smell? Now, in his track, you'll actually be able to see the dribble from the urine. You'll actually be able to see it, you'll be able to smell it. Like if you've ever carried a plastic bag with a hole in it, between your hands, it'll dribble as you move like this. That's exactly how this elephant's track will look. We're just going to watch him as he moves. He's going to follow the ladies wherever they've gone to. He's going to carry on. There's some dung on the right there. Let's see if he smells it. Yeah. Ladies, where are you, ladies? Lauren, a big male elephant can come into a sustained must for up to 3 months solidly. Younger bulls can come in for very short periods of time, and as soon as they encounter a big bull, they drop out of must immediately. So a big bull like this, he probably will be in must for quite some time. The longer he's in must, the more that urine sort of dribbles, the more the green penis syndrome we talk about grows, and the riper and stronger he smells. Although he does smell right now, it's going to get much stronger than that.
Those back legs are going to get drenched, and around his sort of scrotum or penis area, you'll actually find it gets this very green sort of, if you've ever seen water running over copper pipes, it gets that sort of green, rusty sort of appeal. That's what starts to happen. And then the smell is almost unbearable. It gets really, really ripe. Right now it's still quite fresh. He's probably newly in must. But is the case, big male elephants will start coming into must in late summer, when the majority of the females are going to want to come into estrus. With a 22-month gestation, many females want to drop their youngsters in December, November, January. And so 22 months means that between now and the next few months is exactly when they come into estrus.
No luck, I'm afraid. We've checked very carefully, gone as slowly as we possibly can, trying to see if anything pops out, but alas, nothing. I'm just going to go around one more time to see if we can see any sign, but if we don't, we don't. This is the way it is. So all kind of indicators point to something being here. Unfortunately, with the length of the grass, if it's not right on the road or right next to the road, that's going to be a bit of a struggle to pick it up. That's why the Telematis have been so kind to us. They've just kind of been lounging around in the roads most of the time, which is good. Just trying to scan all the trees because I still think that we're going to get a leopard in a tree with all this water and rain, just to get their paws out of it for a while, climb up and just take it easy. We were seeing it already before the rain, so why not now after the rain? I suspect that we'll get one at some point. It's just going to be about being in the right place at the right time. Also, the right tree that's actually visible from the road. Because they could be sitting in trees that just aren't visible from the road, which would be a bit of a pain, but happens. It's also gotten very humid all of a sudden. I wonder if we're not going to get some rain soon. Clouds are getting thicker and heavier and darker as the morning has gone. It's gone from like a light cloud cover to a quite thick, dense cloud. I think we had forecast for rain, so maybe more on its way. Unfortunately, it's not going to be ideal if we do get more. It's already wet enough out here. We get another, 100 mil storm. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. All right, slow bumble around one more time. If nothing, then from there I might just go towards Gari Dam, go do a spot of birding, see if we can find anything lurking that side. Maybe something of rarity would be nice.
Hello everybody, we've moved on from our bull elephant who was on a proper mission. He's probably going to go out towards Simbambili now, towards the west. And we just leave him to his meanderings. Splendid to spend time with a big bull like that. And we're just going to explore a little bit more of the reserve where we haven't been. Luke, no, they don't need to seek them out. They just go about their business. They're quite receptive when they are fully in estrus to a bull, if she likes him. But he will seek her out. He, as you can see, he's very busy. He's moving quite quickly. They continue to move and feed the herds, bearing in mind that they're with youngsters still. Last year, a few years ago's offspring and the rest of the family. And through her urine, he'll be able to tell who's receptive. And it's not uncommon for a bull to follow herds for very long way. If the female isn't quite yet in estrus, but she's coming into estrus, she can be quite non-receptive and can actually move away from him for kilometer after kilometer, which he will chase her until eventually he catches up, and then she sort of submits, if she's interested, of course. So there's going to be lots of noises this time of year. There's going to be lots of calves being born. There's going to be a fair amount of mating and these bulls following the herds. And younger bulls also interested because the smells are there, so they're very keen. But they're not necessarily accepted by the females. They still will have a go. They'll still have a go. And I had a question the other day. Somebody asked me if bulls have to be in must to mate, and I wasn't certain. Tristan's going to send me a paper, but he says to me that they don't have to be in must. He's going to send me a paper on it, which I haven't yet received. But they generally are in must, but they don't have to be. In must is essentially the wild card. Must allows a younger bull out of sort of the prime breeding time to dominate a bigger bull. If the bigger bull's not in must, he could dominate it and push him away. But if a younger bull encounters a big bull in must, he just drops out of that must immediately and acts submissive. Hello, impalas. Are you going to tell us where the leopard is that Tristan's trying to find? Because we don't know. Some little youngsters, they've all been displaced from quarantine, this herd. There's been lions about, don't you know? You have survived another evening. Yes, of course, animals do get sick. Generally, the ones who get sick in the normal season, those genetics don't normally do very well. But it's out-of-season rain that has the potential to cause illness. For example, out-of-season rain, meaning in winter when it's cold, that can often lead to animals like impala getting pneumonia and not doing very well. So out-of-season rain is a problem, but rain in the normal rainy season, these animals are very well adapted to it. And if they do get sick, either they survive that illness or they don't. And if they don't, well, then that weakness or that ailment and the ability to deal with it is not transferred. Impalas are looking very relaxed. They clearly haven't seen anybody of danger for some time, so we're going to carry on from them and go around the block. Sorry, impalas, don't jump. I don't mean you any harm. Their tracks are all over the road here. They've been milling around for some time. It's okay, ladies. Is that important? It's not dangerous. Heidi, the many males in must, how does she choose? Well, the biggest male in must will dominate. So he will be the one who competes the most, and he'll be the one who sustains himself around them. So big males in must, two of them coming together in must, can be extremely, extremely dangerous to witness. Or if anybody is around watching, you don't want to be in the way. But quite often, you don't see these males hanging out together. Big males in must don't normally hang out together, but if they do encounter each other and they're competing for herd, that's when you can see proper battle royales between them. Smaller males will just move away, will be displaced very, very quickly, but bigger males, if they do compete, the winner takes all. And then the female will choose, and that's how the genetics have worked. So the bigger and the stronger the male is normally favored. But like I said, because elephants go through, males get more and more mature as they get older and bigger, how do we keep the breeding sort of chain or the genetics moving? And that's where the wild card comes in, allowing younger bulls out of season to sow a little bit of their seed due to the fact that they can come into must out of season and they can displace other males that aren't necessarily in must. They can still keep the genetics sort of moving in the population, but it's generally the biggest, smelliest male who gets away with it, because most females will be coming into estrus soon that are breeding ready, of course, There's about a 3-year calving interval, close to 2-year pregnancy. So after the pregnancy, then there's another 2.5 to 3 years before that female is receptive again. So it's a slow process, but there are always receptive females. And a bull like that would have picked up on the trail of that herd on quarantine yesterday. Those herds, there were quite a few of them around, and he would be trailing them, and he will find them eventually through smell, and then he'll seek out who is the receptive female. He's not shy at all to walk in and to smell every single female around. Some of them aren't too keen on that. Often leads to lots of drama and lots of noises. Bearing in mind a bull like that is a monster. He's big, and he'll even be looking for the younger females to mate with if they are in estrus. So they can come into estrus as early as the age of 9, which is very, very young. Maybe we get to see some this season. I've never captured or seen elephants mating in the wild. You hear lots of noises and lots of commotion. You're not sure what's happening. They make those noises when there's breeding. They make those noises when there's conflict. They make those noises when there's big males around, when there's predators around. So sometimes it's hard to really know what is going on. Maybe we'll even get to witness a live birth this year. That would be very special to see. Okay, well, while we navigate this rather wet road, we'll send you over to Tristan, who's bumbling about. I wonder if he's had any luck with that leopard.
Well, when it's quiet, it's often good to stop for everything and just listen and hope that you hear things. And so we've stopped with an impala. Unfortunately, no sign of anything coming out of that block. Also, the one road is very wet, so we're not going to drive that, unfortunately, which is probably the right direction for where that alarm call was. If it was a cat moving, it would have probably popped out somewhere there. So we just stopped with this impala, having a little look at him. He's in beautiful condition. That's one nice thing about all this rain. While the roads don't look in very good condition, the impalas and grazing and browsing animals are looking as healthy as you could possibly ask for. They all fat and full, particularly given these guys often, males start to lose condition during the rut and they look a little bit skinny. Since then, and because of the good summer rains we've had, packed on all that weight again, and that animal's in absolute prime condition. Nice little round tummy, fur is all shiny and beautiful. So I think the summers have been good to these guys, and hopefully what would have happened during all of this rain is that any of the animals that might have been struggling with a bit of mange prior to this, they should all be good now. The mange mite won't have done well in all of this. And I just want to keep quiet for a second. I thought I just heard an alarm call. If we did hear an alarm call, it's going to be a problem because it sounded like it was on the other side of the Mulawati, and there's no way around from here. It'll be a long, long way. This impala doesn't seem to be too perturbed. Franklin's making a bit of a noise, but otherwise not much. The nice thing with impalas, if they are alarming, it's not a long period between them. Things like Nyala and Kudu can be tricky because they can bark and then it's a long period and then before they bark again, whereas impalas, when they see something, the snorts are quite rapid, and a lot of them. So if you hear one snorting, generally it's going to snort fairly regularly and you're going to be able to pick up pretty quickly. No, I can't hear anything now. It doesn't sound like it. And like I said, this impala doesn't look too stressed. Jerome, the most reliable alarm calls, depends what we define as reliable. I mean, things like impalas generally are pretty good. So if we're talking reliability for us as guides and using them to find animals, impala's probably a herd of impala all snorting together. That's going to be your most reliable. Kudu and Nyala very seldom bark unless they know for sure they've spotted a cat. They're pretty good about differentiating hyenas from leopards and various other things. So yeah, I would say any of the antelope species that alarm are pretty decent in terms of reliability. They're all not going to just alarm for the sake of nothing. If conditions are right. I mean, sometimes if you get heavy swirling wind, and it's really difficult, then you'll find that the impalas can be pretty skittish, and any sort of movement one will just trigger, and it'll trigger the whole herd to start calling, even though they haven't seen anything. But 99 times out of 100, an impala, particularly a herd, and if you're hearing multiple individuals in the herd alarm calling you, it's almost a guarantee that there's a predator there, and you'll be able to find it. And they'll alarm like that, obviously, for lions, leopard, dogs. They don't alarm like that. Cheetah, they'll alarm for that way. So, when you hear those, that's always the easiest one, and often the easiest to find, because you can find a herd of impala quite quickly. A lone Nyala bull or a kudu in a block is pretty tricky, whereas impalas, because of how many of them and how long they often alarm call, they tend to alarm call for the longest. They're probably the most reliable in terms of actually finding what you're looking for based off the alarm call. Out here anyway, that is. I'm going to have a little groom. That's why the coat looks as good as it does, as these guys are big groomers. They spend a lot of time keeping their body condition good. They use those teeth to comb out loose fur and various little parasites and keep themselves looking as good as possible. You always know when they're healthy when they get this really beautiful shine on them. We see it a lot with the antelope in the summer months. It's kind of looks as though somebody's kind of polished their fur, and there's this beautiful sort of velvety shine across them, whereas in the winter months often you can kind of find them and they look a little bit out of, like hairs are out of place, and they're a little bit more scraggly, which is to do with the fact that they, nutrition-wise are under a bit of pressure. Are you going to drink for us, or are you just going to cross? No, you're just going to cross. You're the most chilled impala ever. They normally don't walk towards you. They normally walk away from you. You can imagine it must be a tough world to be an impala like this on your own, and the reason why he's moved closer to us is because of the shade. You see he is now standing in the shade, which is clever because the sun is brutal today. It's very, very sharp and hot, and that's why I think he just has decided, no, I need shade more than I'm worried about you guys. I'm going to just come and get some nice shade and take it easy. You'll notice with them too is that every now and then they close their eyes and kind of blink, and that's all to do with trying to keep insects out of the eyes. They get a lot of Mopani bees particularly that come and try and sequester moisture from the eyes, particularly the glands. You'll find that they blink quite a lot and shake their heads quite often as well. Megan, you're saying that their horns are so even. Funny enough, this guy's horns are not actually even. His right horn is slightly shorter than his left and is skewed slightly. If you look at the horn structure itself, you can see that the right horn sits slightly further forward than the left horn. But most of the time they do have even sets of horns. Impala horns are pretty... the ones in East Africa, I must admit, are more impressive than the guys down here. Ours tend to be very thick and dense, but quite short, whereas up in East Africa, they're beautiful, beautiful big spread that those impala rams have there. They are quite magnificent up in that part of the world. They really, really do kind of put our boys to shame in terms of the horn size. Body size is pretty similar, though, between the two. In fact, these guys actually might even be, in a good summer period, might be slightly heavier than even the ones in the Mara. It's a crazy looking animal, isn't it? So underappreciated. Gary, it's quite common to see male impalas on their own like this. I wouldn't be surprised if we just drove around a little bit, we'll find a group of females not too far away. But it is commonplace to find them by themselves. Normally not this time of the year. Normally when we reach sort of April, May, they start to break off and can be on their own. But sometimes, they just have maybe fought with another male, or they moving from one clearing to another, leaving a group of females to try and find others, and that's when they're on their own. It's not an uncommon place for a male impala, but they generally, when they do that, they like to be in little bachelor groups together. Eyes and ears and numbers of those is a huge safety blanket. So this guy is going to have a tough time. If a leopard or a lion came across this, it's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for loners that are stragglers out on their own. Much easier to hunt these guys than it is to hunt a group of 10, 12, 15 males or a herd of 100 impalas. These lone bachelors is what all predators look out for, whether that be an impala all the way up to something like a buffalo. I can tell you right now, the Talamati Pride and Kuuma Pride would be far more comfortable hunting a big buffalo bull on his own than they are hunting a herd of 50 cows and calves. It's much harder when you've got a whole collective group together to, one, get close, and two, to actually kind of be able to catch that individual and then keep any sort of offensive maneuver from the prey animals at bay, in the case of things like buffalo. Even zebra to a degree. I mean, I've seen zebra kick lines off of foals and of other members. Stallion can be a serious thing. He can get quite angry at times and cause a bit of havoc. Mothers as well. So, these guys, even if they're on their own, well, if they're in groups, are far more protected than on their own. So you'll have to be careful today. There doesn't seem to be any sign of anything anywhere near where he is right now. We've driven around this area and unfortunately have seen very, very little in the way of anything that he needs to worry about. Happy impala, though, for sure. All right, let's carry on. Let's go. I want to just quickly check in front here towards the Mulawati, just see what's happening there, how it's flowing today. It dropped quite substantially yesterday, so I'm going to try and see how it looks today. All right, as I carry on, are you waving to the impala? Theo's waving to the impala, okay. As I carry on, let's send you across to Steve.
Impalas are always a good one. Indeed, they do provide us with many of our leopard sightings. But baboon and vervet monkey are extremely reliable. I think if we had more of them around, we'd probably find more of the spotted cats. We're on our western side now, just slowly making our way down. So overgrown, I haven't driven this road in quite some time. Just having a look at all the tall trees. Look at how green the vegetation is. Such a transformation from when I was here in October. And the growing is going to continue. All of this rain. And apparently there's another small event on the way next week. Ooh. And some elephant holes in the ground. Lovely and fresh morning. Jai, well, some people call impala red goats because of how destructive they could be to the vegetation, but I don't know the lineage of goats. Impala are pretty unique in their own right. They sort of fall into their own little family. They're very, very unique. But they are antelope, and I suppose a goat somewhere down the line is also an antelope of some sort. But you're not far wrong when you think goat. Except I've never seen an impala stand on its back legs and browse. Both mixed feeders, both ruminants, both cloven-hooved animals. So many similarities, yes. But taxonomically, there are differences, and I really don't know much about the taxonomy of a goat. Generally, goats, I think both male and female have horns, don't they? Paul? Yeah? I think so. But yes, I've heard them called red goats before. But they're not goats. Here we get these Legabafazi up here on the right. Can you see him there? The cackling woman, the green wood hoopoe. Off they go. And they're flying away looking for insects in the bark of the trees. Legabafazi in Zulu means the cackling woman. I didn't come up with the name at all. That is a Zulu word. And then there's also Klega Mafazi, which is cackling woman in Shangaan. As they kind of sound a little bit like giggling, laughter. Very long beaks for probing into the bark of trees, looking for insects that have hidden under there. Little cooperative breeding bird. Maybe we'll get them again up here. They don't normally fly too far away. There they fly again. Out of here. Yeah, they're not going to stick around for us today. That's all right. We've gotten them many times before. Okay, well, we're going to carry on down the slope and head on back towards the centre of Djuma. In the meantime, back over to Mr. Tristan.
Well, hopefully Steve will have more luck at the centre of Djuma than I did. I certainly didn't get too much in the way of things. You'll see we've got a monitor lizard, a big fat water monitor lizard that is sitting on the road, and it's basically sunning itself. A lot of the reptiles are going to be doing this in the next few days, just try and kind of get that body temperature back up again after a rough couple days of cyclonic weather. Luckily, he's had a bit of sunshine this morning, so he should be good. Now, this particular monitor lizard, you probably can hear in the background a number of birds. Well, you're right in the back there, Thea. All right, wonderful. Thea's just having a little allergic reaction to the pollen of the grass this morning, so he's sneezing non-stop and trying to keep it in. But this little guy is going to be a problem because you might be hearing in the background a lot of weavers, and this monitor lizard has been known to actually try and rob the nests a little bit. But I'll show you how the weavers are able to get away with it. You see where they build their nests? Right on the edge of the flimsiest branch that they can possibly manage. And what that means is that this monitor lizard's weight is way, 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 way too heavy for those branches. And so as it tries to go, it unfortunately gets itself into a bit of a tangle and can't actually reach the nest, and those birds are able to keep those chicks safe. What doesn't work, though, is if something like a boomslang or a mamba gets there, they'll definitely raid those nests. Happens quite regularly. There's also a beautiful view of a woodland kingfisher sitting right next to us. You don't often get them as close as this. And the coloration is something we always need to kind of take into account. Unfortunately, the wind is blowing him all over the place. But look at that. Isn't that pretty? That black stripe across the eye, a beautiful red beak. And hopefully he'll turn slightly and we'll get that iridescent blue that he has on his wings. You can also see a little bit of the powder blue that extends up sort of behind the head. There's actually one in the Congo called a blue-breasted kingfisher that looks exactly the same, except that powder blue that you see on the back of the head extends through onto the collar, onto the chest area, which is nice and pretty. He just almost flew into the car. That would have been a bad day for that kingfisher if he had flown into the car. Wouldn't have gone down very well. But anyway, back to the kind of weavers and the monitor. They have this sort of chess game that takes place. And for now, this particular tree really works nicely for the weavers themselves. They're able to really kind of get into a safe point and build these nests without having to worry about him too much. I haven't as yet seen a snake in this particular tree, but it does happen. Snakes are actually pretty good swimmers, and they can swim quite easily to a tree like that up and then start to feed on the little nestlings that are inside those nests. It's a terrible thing to watch because the poor adults do everything they can in order to try and hound the snake to get rid of it. But, you know, if it can withstand a few pecks, then it's pretty happy just to keep moving and going into those nests itself. Just listen to the noise there. Amazing. I find with these guys as well, what you find is there's these like ebbs and flows in their noise level. It goes from this kind of low hum, and then all of a sudden one male will go crazy, and that will just spark the whole group to go out of control, and everybody then starts to make a huge amount of noise. And basically it's a crescendo, and then it all calms down again. What you'll also notice is this little monitor has popped its head up. And the reason why it has is that the Egyptian geese started to honk and hiss, almost kind of alarm call style that they have. But it wasn't for a predator, but it was for two other Egyptian geese that flew over. But they do the same for a predator. And so this monitor lizard, as soon as they started, picked its head up and just started to look around in case. They are susceptible to a number of different predators themselves. So even though they target these weavers, they've got to be very careful. We know we saw a martial eagle this morning. Martial eagles hammer these guys. If they're small enough, fish eagles will take them. And then we know that leopards are big exponents, particularly young leopards. So ones that have just kind of left their mom, they'll often hunt these guys regularly. It's a much easier catch than going after something like that male impala that we saw earlier. Remember when Hosana and Shongile were unfortunately orphaned, they used to sit exactly where we are now, and they used to chase the monitor lizards around, and they were actually both quite successful. Both of them managed to get a monitor or two while they were around these pans. Sometimes even up at Gari Dam they were able to be successful up there. So it's a tactic that those cats do use, and so a monitor has to be careful when it's lying out in the open like this. If it's seen, it's going to be a soft target, so it needs to keep itself aware of its environment and make sure that it's not caught short. Now, something that's not short, though, is its tail. Isn't the tail incredible? Look how long it is, kind of much longer than the rest of the body. And that is part of their defensive mechanism. So if, let's say, hypothetically, a cat would come here, they would basically inflate themselves up and start to hiss and really make this loud sound to try and intimidate that animal, and then it would whip that tail back and forth. And that tail, if it hits something like a little young leopard on the nose, those little young leopards can get a bit of a fright and they back up and move away, and that can be just enough time for this to shoot into the water. And we know often cats are not going to really follow too much into flooded sections and can kind of save their life. So that tail is really important for these guys, and if by any kind of randomness the tail doesn't hit and they can latch on with their mouth, they'll do the same thing. They have quite powerful jaws for their size, and if they get hold of you, it is very, very uncomfortable. They kind of chew on you, and it can leave a serious mark. They'll draw blood, no problem. Well, these little guys, so you've got to be a bit careful with them. And you'll find, I've seen lions and leopards, young ones, backpedal pretty quickly when one of these guys gets upset and starts whipping that tail around and thrashing with teeth and biting them on the face and the nose. It's quite interesting to see how quickly they back down. No, Stacey, I mean, they're not like a Komodo dragon. They're not going to get to, 5 feet long. But a big monitor, probably looking in the region of about 1.5 meters. Yeah, that would be a big monitor. Most of them don't quite get that long. This is a fairly decent sized Nile monitor. You do get bigger than this, and the rock monitors can get very large. They can get, I think, closer to 2 meters if you include the tail. So the tail comprises a very large portion of their body size. Their heads and their bodies are quite stoutly built, but the tail is very long and adds the length to them. But these Nile monitors, as much as the kind of hair, if you take away from the reptilian look of it, and the actual colorations on them are fascinating. They've got beautiful little yellows and greens kind of mixed in with these dark blue-black bands, and this kind of mottled appearance. And the coloration in good light is really, really pretty. They have actually quite vivid colors, particularly the younger ones. They have a beautiful, bright body color. As they get older, it starts to fade a little bit, but newborns are seriously pretty from a color point of view. You've got to, obviously, like I say, take away the fact that they have this little serpentine face with these long claws and feet and this whipping tail that a lot of people aren't a huge fan of. But the color itself is magnificent, and that's perfect coloration for where they spend their time. I mean, they spend their time mostly in areas where it's kind of grassy, flooded sections or wet sections, and so greens and yellows do blend in really well in these kind of areas and color in these kind of flooded sort of parts. So it's perfect camouflage for them. All right, we'll sit here for a little bit longer, see what else we can find in these flooded waters. Maybe there's a nice little bird for us, but we'll have to get our binos out to take a bit of a scan.
Photos of him.
Southern red-billed hornbills in the road. Hello. These fellows have been quite annoying lately. As they land on our porch and they attack themselves in the window, thinking the window is another southern red-billed hornbill. They get quite aggressive towards it, and that beak is quite hard. And it's like hitting it with a stone. Very, very loud. I remember last year James Hendry complaining a few times about the youngsters, because the youngsters beg from the adults. They make this very annoying begging sound. Very common bird, the hornbill. Very successful breeder with their cavities. What are you looking for? Seeds? Insects? Come back out into the road so we can see you. There we are. Very able to walk, saves a lot of energy. Maybe there's something here in the middle. A nice little hop he does sometimes. Very nice walk. Very interesting tracks that they leave behind.
can see, not much has changed. I haven't managed to find anything. The grasses are quite long, so I don't see any sign of any birds. I was kind of hoping that we'd maybe get a little painted snipe. They're often at this little pan, these two pans. The monitor's not really helping because I can't actually move forward enough to see the pan really nicely, so with a very limited view. But I was hoping, like I say, maybe them crakes often found in this kind of stuff, so things like African crake, or, you know, if we were very lucky, spotted crake might be around. Lesser moorhen, they like this kind of area, and we know that there has been one seen here, which is a nice bird to get in this section. So, you know, I was hoping we'd get something, but I've actually been a bit disappointed. We haven't had any real kind of water bird rarities. There's been a lot of the tern species, but nothing water bird wise. Peats, they just sit in trees really. So in rain like we had recently, you know, we didn't have ridiculous winds, here at least. They just find a tree and kind of get in underneath, you know, marula trees, big jackleberries. If they get in there, then they're fine. Things like vultures and will generally find a dead tree and just kind of get as close to the trunk as possible and just sit there. And just take it, basically. There's not really much else they can do. They wingspan and their weight and everything else, they don't do well in foliated trees. But eagles and those kind of birds will just go in underneath. Things like storks, they will roost for the night normally in a dead tree, or on the ground. They're quite happy just to sit on the ground and just, again, be rained on. Feathers generally, because of the oils within the feathers, often have a very repellent nature to them, so water will just kind of roll off for the most part. But they get wet and they get pretty miserable. Yesterday morning was quite funny because most of the birds, all their feathers were matted together. They all didn't look very good. And by the afternoon, everybody was looking pristine again. So they'd cleaned themselves out, you know, groomed themselves, gotten all their feathers back into decent condition, and we're fine. But yeah, big birds, depends on the bird species, but trees mostly is where they'll just kind of hunker down and tuck their heads in and just wait for the rain to finish. I always like listening to these weavers. It's a lot of noise. I mean, it's not a pretty noise, but it just sounds like hustle and bustle. It's almost like what you hear when you go into a city and you walk down the streets of London. It's this hubbub of noise. And it's a very similar kind of thing, I suppose, in many respects. A whole bunch of people going about their business is the same as a whole bunch of weavers going about theirs, and all hard at work and commuting and doing what they need to do. Well, they are pretty birds. I mean, they've got a beautiful coloration, don't they? That bright yellow. Well, the males anyway. The females are a little bit more drab. But the males have this beautiful yellow coloration with these blacks kind of contrasting through it. And in really nice light, it definitely has a huge amount of beauty that comes out. The color is very, very vibrant in the right kind of light. So they are pretty. The weaver species across Africa are beautiful. There's some really pretty ones. East Africa has got some nice ones, and then the forest weavers are all really pretty as well. So we're spoiled. We've got some serious beautiful birds. We're very, very lucky with the diversity and the colors that we do see here. Anyway, it is that time of the day, though, where we need to say goodbye to all of you. Hopefully you've had an enjoyable bumble through the African wilderness, and that there was something for everyone. I hope that we'll see you all this afternoon when we head back out again. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more productive from our side, but Steve seemed to have had a good one. So anyway, from all of us, it's been good. Hopefully we'll see you this afternoon on our Sunset Safari.